Welcome, Sound Science. As you can see, we've got ultra special guest, Mystic Mark, in the house, lighting up what I'm going to assume is a tobacco only little. Well, it looks more like I'm not going to say what it looks like. How you doing, man? What's going on?
Oh, I'm good, and I'm in the legal cannabis state of Connecticut. So I don't know what YouTube's policy is, but I'll acknowledge what's actually in my blind. I think the real ones know. But anyways, happy to be here on Sound Science, talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very glad to be here, and it's so cool to see the variety of content that you've been putting together on your Patreon, which I am a supporter of, and your YouTube and all the other uh, alternatives to YouTube, which I think are more important. That's where we're live streaming right now. So send me that links in the chat so I could share it with my audience
Oh, right
too.
on. Yeah, and don't worry, we're not live on YouTube. I've been had my hands slapped far too many times at this point that I'm a little bit paranoid. Hence the name, I guess. I'm finally living up to my namesake for the first time in a while. But it just seems that if I go live on YouTube with this video, there's a high chance it gets struck down and I have to do the whole appeal process. But if I just record it and then upload it and let it do all of its checks and then publish it, I pretty much never have any problems unless they want to dig me for something that's been up for like a year. But there's really no way to protect yourself from those sort of like little hits and bites at the heel. So I guess for now, unless it is like the most vanilla thing ever, I'll just go live to all the other platforms and then YouTube will kind of get the follow up and we'll see. Once my strikes die down, I might feel a little bit more flippant. But right now I'm like I'm treading on thin ice. I got the 2 strikes. I got the red number 2 every time I log in, and they're gonna last until summer. So I don't know. I feel like I'm in timeout.
Yeah, yeah. After I got put in timeout in 2021, I kind of stepped back from YouTube, in the way that I was tackling it at first. So people who look at my show on YouTube are like, "Oh, this is weird. He doesn't publish a lot," and that's exactly why I'm way more consistent with my podcast feed, and the scraps go out to YouTube. That's just to bring people in, but uh that's one approach that I'm rethinking. So who knows? There might be more YouTube content from me this year. But
I'd suggest it.
you shared the Rumble link with me, so I'm going to copy paste that into my Telegram group. My family thinks I'm crazy. Chat on Telegram, and
Now
maybe
here comes the floodgates.
yeah, let's open up the lunatic
Let's see what
floodgate.
kind of weirdness Mark brings with him. I'm excited to see.
Yes,
And just real quick, and the last thing about the whole YouTube and like behind the scenes talking shop stuff, but it's interesting just because for me, YouTube dwarfs the income, it dwarfs all the other social media and podcasts and every Rumble, like all combined times 10. It still dwarfs a lot of that.
Hmm.
And it also on slow days, man, like it might pay out more than what I'm getting from selling comics and doing like my normal thing. So
Hmm.
to imagine what could be potentially a decent passive revenue stream just for putting out stuff that I want to make anyways, you know what I mean? It's almost a no-brainer. And that's where the normies are. And I was on a show last night with Cheney and Layla and Abby and Gordy and the Secret Society of Good Guys. And Cheney said something that really struck home with me that I think I'm going to take to heart a little bit. And she was like, I refuse to leave the battlefield. Like, you can take me out as many times as you want, but I'll keep coming back. I'll keep making new accounts. I'll change my name legally if that's what you make. Like, if that's the dance we have to do, like,
Hmm.
I'll dance and I won't leave the dance floor. And I kind of like that mentality where it's so easy to get frustrated and just be like, well, screw it. I'm not even going to interact with that particular. And that would make sense if it was like a rinky dink one. But if it's where all the freaking normies are, then I think it's important enough to keep working at it.
I agree. Yeah, no, that's why I've rethought my approach to it. But without further ado, let's get into the show. What are we into, brother? It's my
So
first time.
here I'll show the thumbnail just as like a little quick explanation, and I'm still figuring out the format of this show. And yeah, Anna Banana Republic, we are on Rumble. I think we're on Mark's and we're on my Rumble, or maybe we're just on mine. this is the today's show. This is the thumbnails that I've been working out. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna talk about 10 different albums, 5 that Mark brought to the table that are on top, and then 5 that I brought to the table. And usually the format is that whatever 5 albums the guest wants to talk about, I'll try and find 5 that are in my existing library that I like that kind of match either the theme or the genre or the time period or something. So today's episode is essentially what conscious hip hop. And before everyone in the comments is like, stop with the rap is crap, and like we'll get to it, man. We'll do some Tom Waits and we'll do some rock and we'll do like country. We'll do all the different genres. But blame Mark. Mark's the one with the horrible taste in conscious hip hop. So
Well, I do want to say, so this is not all conscious hip hop, okay? This is a nice spread of what I would generally call underground rap. So conscious rap is maybe like a subgenre of underground rap, which itself is a subgenre, unfortunately. But it's really for people who know hip hop and the story of hip hop, it's a continuation of what hip hop originally was. And it also kind of reflects, some of these albums reflect the internet and how the internet changed rap. Some of these albums reflect how the gangster era changed rap. But I think all of these artists, for the most part, acknowledge that same frustration that you just expressed, which is rap is crap, which is why they're underground. I mean, most mainstream rap is shit. And these guys say it themselves in their lyrics. Like, we're going to read a few songs where, they're calling this stuff out. So to me, I'm not listening to this music every day. I actually think, it'd be counterproductive at this point because I've absorbed all the, valuable information in the music. Some of it I go back to here and there, and I do love the energy it brings to my life in certain points. But I think the message is what's most important with these songs. So if you're not a fan of rap, don't leave now, because I think you'll be surprised to see how intellectual some of the themes of the lyrics are. The aesthetics aside, because a lot of, like I said, they reflect the what's trending in the era that they came out, and all of these. I think Army of the Pharaohs, Heavy Lies the Crown is the newest album. That's the one all the way on the left, and then the rest of them are from before 2012, I believe, and like the one on the right there by Aesop Rock, that's from like 2001 or the late 90s. So we're gonna span quite time distance. Rap has changed a ton over the past 30 years. So is it 30 years, or did they celebrate 50 years of hip hop at the,
it's
wasn't that
probably
what,
closer to 50.
I think, yeah, they did
It would
this
have
big
to
like
be.
50 years of hip hop celebration because it started
I think
in,
it was like set like late 70s ish
yeah,
is where some of the
77,
original roots.
75, somewhere around there. Yeah.
And for anyone that ends up just listening to this, do you want to just mention what out like I'll scroll through here, but just mention what these 5 albums are.
Yeah, so in no particular order, but in a sort of order, if you want to go actually all the way from the right, because I gave you 1 to 5. So I would say, all right, in order of like most interesting to least interesting, or reverse that, least interesting to most interesting, in my opinion. We have East Coast Avengers present DC the Midi Alien Avengers Airwave. Then we have an A by Eyedea and Abilities. And we have an album that I picked specifically for Thomas because these guys are Florida centric rappers, and I don't know many other rappers like that. So 1990 Now with self-titled and Buckwild, very different rap than some of the other rap
I didn't
that's,
know they were Florida based.
yeah, Tampa, I believe. And then Float by Aesop Rock, not ASAP Rocky, common misconception. Aesop Rock, out of Long Island or Brooklyn, somewhere around there, New York centric. And then Army of the Pharaohs, the nearest and dearest to my heart, so to speak. My favorite, sort of my friend group's favorite. We would listen to Army and the Pharaohs in high school, and just like it just exploded all these different thoughts that I had about the world, and added so much context to this intuitive feeling that I had about music, culture, and all this stuff. So Army of the Pharaohs, Heavy Lies the Crown, they've done a ton of albums, but that one I think is one of my favorites. So it's really, in a way, kind of like showing you a little window into, like I was saying before we started, a full spread of the diversity of like different sounds within one what you can consider subgenre of rap, because it's an eclectic mix. Like Aesop rock is a little bit more artsy, poetic, whereas Army of the Pharaohs is a lot more like gangster rap, but smart, And then DC the Midi Alien and Eyedea Abilities, like these guys are kind of like even fusions of those things. And then self-titled and Buckwild, like, I mean, they're very lyrical and smart, very gangster, very like picking up on the trends, but pushing them to a degree that's even smarter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get into the lyrics, and everything I'm saying will make a little more sense. But I have all the respect in the world for these groups, and some of the ones you picked too. I already see Illogic. I know him. I'm a fan of his work. Cannibal Ox, big fan of them. And I forgot all about them until I just saw the album cover there. So, but yeah.
Have you seen all these? Yeah, I'll mention mine real quick. So Illogic, Unforeseen Shadows, and I would definitely say that these all fit into underground just as much as conscious for sure. If the theme was gonna be tear down the mainstream from the underground, I would have thrown in Bumpy Knuckles, Industry Shakedown. I don't know if you ever heard that album. Very, very good. And then Crustified Dibs, which was the original name of R.A. the Rugged Man. And he had a song called Every Record Company Sucks Dick, which is pretty much on the nose, but it's it is an amazing song. But I didn't pick those ones for this one. And I also almost picked Labor Days to match your float for Aesop Rock, but I just kind of grabbed five that I also kind of like fell in love with in high school in particular, probably 11th, 12th grade or something. So Illogic, Unforeseen Shadows. Oh, and I gotta before I forget too, shout out Army of the Pharaohs in case you or anyone else watching didn't know this. I'll just throw a little quick self shout out here. But Kingsyze came out with a solo album called Seismology in 2006. He's one of the members, and yours truly is actually on the very first track of that album. That's
No
me right
way.
there, Sound Scientist. So
Dude,
you didn't know that, did you?
that
I'm
is
just letting you know.
insane.
I got a couple others too that I'll drop as we do this series that no one knows about.
Well, what's so cool about this, and a little background into how you and I met, like you and I just kind of met through Tinfoil Hat and my podcast. You reached out to me with some cool stuff. And then I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I want to talk to you on my podcast. And I don't, again, like, I don't mean to like flex like, oh, I found Thomas and put him on my podcast first. But I do think that our podcast together is the first podcast that you've ever done.
But you were the
Plus,
first one to shine the turd, man. It was awesome.
well, but that's the thing. And what's so weird for me is like this music, which you're connected to, was how I got interested in all this stuff back when I was like 14, 13, like landscaping with my dad, pissed off and listening to like Vinny Paz thinking I was hard, like like that was my life back then. So it's
I'll
crazy to
strangle him
think.
with his rosary. You're like, that's you, Dad.
Oh man. Yeah, no, and I listened to this album On a Mission, Blitz Inc.
So
Like
quick shout
it's
out.
all
Next time
bringing
you
back
listen to that
memories.
album, the very first track, just know that that was me way back in the day. That was a whole different lifetime ago, man. And I got a
Wow.
few other. I'm not going to drop them all right now. I'll drop them as they come up and they're relevant. But more of these will come up. And it's not all rap either because I worked in the recording industry for a handful of years. Anyways, my albums are Illogic, Unforeseen Shadows, Deep Concentration 3, which is actually like a mixtape. It's got a bunch of different songs on it, and the one in particular I couldn't even find the lyrics for, which I'll go into that rabbit hole too. I think we got The Cold Vein by Cannibal Ox, And a lot of people might know LP more famously from Run the Jewels that he's in with Killer Mike now, but OG Style was this Cold Vein Cannibal Ox album. We got Mind Over Matter by Zion I, which is a album that like I lived my high school senior year at least through this. I went through so many weird times on this album, so I can't talk great enough about this one. This is like my go-to. And then Binary Star Masters of the Universe, which definitely is maybe more underground than conscious. I don't know. There's a few really good songs on that one too. I even as this is like a weird story, but when I had first joined the military, I was so obsessed with this album, and ODB got sent to jail. And I handwrote because you couldn't like send someone unless it was like handwritten or something. I don't know what the rules were from like military to jail, but I was trying to send him a letter because I got some other weird connections to Wu-Tang, but I actually wrote out the whole entire lyrics to I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings from Binary Star Master in the Universe and sent it to him. Although I don't know if it got to him or if it helped him out at all. I heard he had a really rough time in there, but those are my 5 albums. We're going to go into them in a little bit of detail. And I think the way that this might work is that we just take turns. So you do one, I'll do one, you do one, I'll do one. And that's kind of how we'll just play it so that, I don't like steal all the time up front and vice versa. So
Okay.
you're the guest. I'll let you start out Army of the Pharaohs. And what I've got here is I like this
I
website
did
called Rap Genius. Go ahead.
I did kind of want to start with
Oh yeah,
I
tell me which
wanted to
one.
end with Army of the Pharaohs if that's possible.
So do you want to
'Cause
start with a DC the Midi Alien because that's where
yeah,
you started?
yeah, I think that'd be the best way to go about it because I have less to say about them, the in that order, right? So like the more I have to say is the ones that are towards the end of the list. So I think we should save those for the end, get these out of the way. Not that this album's any worse than any of the others. I just think as far as listenability goes, like this album really sticks in 2011, 2012, and kind of reflects at least the mindset I was in back then. And I've grown out of some of the aspects of this album in some ways. So, but yeah, how are we going to start this? Should I just tell you which song I think we should look at as far as lyrics go?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I want to just say shout out Truth Seeker if you're still here. I hope you're doing well, man. You've been killing it. He's been on like Alex Jones recently,
Oh wow.
which is crazy, bro. Like Meteoric Rise, shout out. And just like a quick preface that I use Rap Genius, or it's just genius.com now, I guess. Genius.com, and it's really good because you can put almost any halfway mainstream song into this site and it'll break down the lyrics for
Yeah.
almost any song, and you can hover over and it'll break down like what the meanings are. So yeah, take it away and let me know what song to go with.
Yeah, it's kind of what like community edited, like similar to maybe like urbandictionary.com or Wikipedia. God forbid there are people censoring stuff on Genius lyrics, but
There's a lot
yeah,
of wrong interpretations too. I've seen lots where they're
yeah,
like, not only
that's
the
the other
lyrics
thing.
wrong, but then someone will break down the wrong lyric, so they'll get
Yeah.
it like completely wrong. It's kind of interesting to see.
When we get to rock and roll eventually, I'll have some more opinions because these lyrics are very on point in my opinion. Like I have no arguments with any of these rappers. I think they all said exactly what they meant to say, and I don't think anyone has any problem understanding it. But when it comes to rock music, there's more um, room for interpretation with certain ways words are sung, and there's oftentimes debates on what someone actually saying if the lyrics aren't clear. So anyways, that aside, East
So we're
Coast
starting
Avengers.
with let's see, this is the album title is Avengers Airwaves. The artist is DC the Midi Alien and released in 2011.
And it's presented by East Coast Avengers. So that's kind of why I picked it. It's more about the East Coast Avengers as kind of like a sub group within the kind of Army of the Pharaohs world. As you can see there, like some of the guys featured on the album are Slain, Vinny Paz, Sabak Red, Outer Space,
Oh, yeah.
Main
Shout out
Flow.
Outer Space and Mainflow
Yeah.
to well, Outer Space is the group, but I've worked with Mainflow too, so shout out.
and I got to keep reading because there's still others. Rex, Black Poet, Terminology, Akir, Big Shug, Blackistan, fan of him for sure. Dope Nixon, and Reef the Lost Cause, who's another favorite of mine. And I don't know. I think that's a Philly thing. I don't know what reef means, but I've met people who call themselves a reef. So I think that's a Philly slang for like a pothead. You call yourself a reef, reefer. I don't know.
Reefer.
I like Reef the Lost Cause. He's always kind of vibe with me. But as far as this song goes, I like Man Made Ways. That's probably my favorite song on the album. And like I was saying before, like this album really sticks in the time period of like what was it? We had before QAnon, we had what? Anonymous. You remember that hacking group, right? And we had a lot of, let's say, anti conservative conspiracies that were more popular on the internet because we just left the 9/11 Patriot Act, George Bush era. So you hear a lot of stuff against Fox News on this album, whereas nowadays maybe people in the alternative community would see Fox News as more of a, oppressed voice that's speaking the, the political minorities side of things. This is when things were different. So for the younger audience who might not have been aware during that time period, like, yeah, before Obama, there were very pronounced and explicit anti-conservative values being expressed in a lot of the music from the 90s into the early 2000s. So for me, not to let politics cloud any art, this is very politically oriented art. This album. I mean, it's very Banksy, this album, like it's very anti-establishment, and it might not be as poignant as some of the other albums are because it really represents that time period of the 2010 to 2012, Bernie, all that, Occupy Wall Street. So, and the album really reads like a radio show, like the way that they put it together, which I appreciate. And also another thing, like with the podcast we do, not only was I inspired to get into conspiracy and all this, but when I started getting into podcasting, I was really inspired by this music and the way that they took samples from all sorts of different avenues, not just movies, not just other songs, but from political speeches, from weird like conspiracy videos you'd see on the old internet. So there are like info bites archived in these albums that again are relevant for that time period and worth listening to from a historical perspective. I don't mean to over intellectualize music that is kind of inherently street oriented, but this is like, the rebel youth sort of spirit. This is like the renegade urban spirit, I guess, in some ways. After all of the madness with BLM, I don't know how much I support this kind of music because I think a lot of those people supported those riots, maybe naively, but that's their political opinion, not mine. So, anyways, yeah. So if there is a song to look at the lyrics for this album, it's "Man Made Ways," and that has two favorites of mine, Sabak and Vinny Paz. Slain and Trademark are great too.
I just gotta cut into. I didn't even realize that Quite Nice is also on this album. He's on track 7.
Mm.
And if anyone is interested, you can hear a song that I did with Quite Nice as well. It's called Save Hip Hop. I didn't even upload this. Someone bootlegged this, like, I don't know how long, 14 years ago. Look at this. Someone bootlegged this onto YouTube 14 years ago. But if you search for Quite Nice, Save Hip Hop from Sound Scientists, another random, it's weird that out of this one album, I've worked with 3 of the artists. Okay. So we'll go to Man Made Ways. And then here's the lyrics. And you can feel free to rap them if you want, or just read them out, or just describe what they're about. It's completely up to you. I'm just saying that because Donut, when we did the last episode, he just straight up started freestyling some of them, and I liked it. So don't hold back.
Well, I'm not saying I don't do that in
No
the
pressure.
privacy of
There's
my
no
own
pressure.
car. I'm not saying I don't do that in the privacy of my own car, but I do need the music and the person rapping as
To disguise your ears behind it.
I'm not saying I'm not good,
Is
but
this like the beginning of Office Space where you're like jamming out in the car, then like a guy walks by and you kind of like turn it down a little bit?
that's exactly it. That's my
Sweet.
yeah, anytime I listen to rap, that's exactly it. And, yeah, I don't know. I would not wanna do that here because we're gonna get you copyright stricken 'cause
Okay.
I'm
All
a
right. You
mimic.
can blame
I'm
it on
very
me. That's
good
fine.
No, I'm saying I'm very good at sounding like the rapper. Like, I like I don't know, now it's not popular, but y code switching, right? That's what they call it now, the kids. But when I was growing up, it was called doing an impression. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing, right? So, yeah, I could rap, but I am not proud of it. It's not something that I want on
We'll
display.
get you on a song at least. Maybe a live
When I
stream
was
someday. We'll get you on a song.
when I was in high school, I wrote out lyrics and went over to my friend, I won't say his name 'cause he's actually a comedian now, but I went over to this guy's house who at the time was a rapper who went by the name Slimmy D. If anybody knows me, they might know who I'm talking about, and I recorded a rap song that's somewhere out there, probably on an iPod that no longer works. So, yeah, I have done that before. I'm not saying I can't or, but that's the thing, you get into this music and it's like, it like invites you in, you wanna participate in it, and I think that's why a lot of people like rap because they can rap along with it, that's kind of the point, right? So, anyways, don't entice me, Thomas.
Okay. Well, you can just describe what we're seeing here for this being the song that you picked on the album.
Well, scroll down a little bit because
Okay.
I wanna kinda give, like, the gist of it, but also I think people should really not just take what we're reading and go and listen to the songs because I guarantee I'm picking, because if you don't like the one that I picked, then you might not like the rest of the songs on the album, right? So, like, just go and listen to the 5 or 6 songs that we're gonna highlight, and if you're watching live, maybe keep watching live, but if you're watching this in the future, pause it, listen to the whole song, and then keep playing. I think that's the beauty of a cool show like this. And with these groups, I don't think Avengers Airwaves put out like music videos for this album. They might have, but I know some of these songs have music videos that we're going to talk about today. So definitely go and search those on YouTube. I'm sure these rappers would appreciate the attention. There a lot of these guys have big YouTube channels though, because it's like a cult. There's a cult following for this type of music. So,
And this
anyways,
is one
yeah.
of the cool things too, if you notice on this is on genius.com that whenever some of the lyrics you can hover over and they change, you can click on it, and that's what'll give you this annotation that someone has added here.
So, and now we're not going to get into too much of the details here, but people looking at the screen are kind of reading. Go back up to Sabak's, the beginning of Sabak's verse. So he says, "We live in a harsh reality. Get our brains."
Sorry
Oh,
about that.
it's okay. You
I
just,
don't it jumped on me.
yeah.
There we go.
We get our brains washed out with filthy water, caught up in the thrill of borders, walk among the killing quarters. Go down a little bit. The difference is now businesses are center of disease control, diabetes, VDs, cancers, and AIDS, increasing the obesity as if we cannot be saved. So, these are all things that people are very aware of now that in 2010 were like oddball topics to bring up. You would like risk your social reputation if you tried to say like cancer or something was maybe being weaponized. I'm not saying that, that's allegedly. But anyways, yeah, so this music is I think very eye-opening, and again, it represents the time period and a certain perspective, like I can very much relate to it growing up where I grew up, and some of these guys are from Connecticut actually. There's a lot of this music is very East Coast oriented. So I didn't pick any of those rappers, but they are kind of semi involved, so I'll mention them when
I
they
mean,
come up. But yeah, let's
it's an interesting mix, man, because like first you've got like you were kind of saying, right? Here's the pay women only 2/3 of what men make claim, right? Paying women as slaves. Here is like late, like talking about farms and laborers and minimum wage, which is a little bit of that left wing aspect
Oh
that's
yeah,
kind of
all of
like
this comes
free.
from a very left wing aspect.
But then look at this one, right? They sit and create plagues, inject us with flu shots. This is now
Right
very
wing.
extremist right wing
Right,
rhetoric. You know what I mean? Like this would
right.
be, oh, this guy's voting for Trump if you heard someone say this now.
Well, and that's where some of the cognitive dissonance is with some of these rappers, and I'm a fan of a lot of their music still to this day, but some of them have completely moved away from the conspiracy content because they are still more left leaning than they are dedicated to the truth. I don't know if that's because of the audience or the circles they roll in or what, but I think a lot of people on the right would embrace this music. Um, if they like rap already. But anyways,
I think
yeah,
it's a little bit silly to even like, even though literally just did this, but it's a little silly to look through lyrics of a song and just be like, oh, because of that line, they're left wing. Oh, wait, because of that line, well, now they're right
it's
wing.
yeah, and it's a you're making a great point because it's a political viewpoint, and now we live in a world where every viewpoint is categorized either left or right. And it was that way in the sense in the past, but there was more freedom for people to have varying viewpoints that might not have necessarily aligned with the values of people who also shared, similar. But yeah, I
Well,
think
this
that
whole
this
aspect of
album,
like flu shots, this for the longest time was apolitical up until 2019. I wasn't really aware because remember it was Jim Carrey and Jenny McCarthy, McCarthy, which were basically being like anti-vax back in the day, and they weren't particularly right wing or left wing.
yeah, no, it's I mean, that's the thing is they politicize things that are not meant to be politicized. This is human, it's human to not want this death cult to push all these things onto us and contribute to the death of humanity. We should be wanting
That's
life.
Mark. Mark speaking for himself. For all the overlords, I am on board with whatever death cult stuff you guys got going on. Just keep the paychecks coming.
Well, all right. So let's, like I said, East Coast Avengers, definitely a favorite of mine, but I don't know how they would feel about a podcast like this nowadays. Maybe some of these guys have moved away from the types of statements they were making in 2010. Again, different political atmosphere. But now we're gonna switch things up a little bit and go over to E&A, Idea and Abilities, which I think reflects some of the deeper philosophical, existential kind of aspects of a lot of this music. This album in particular has a lot of really radical points of view, especially for the time it was released, but and maybe at least just in comparison to the other music that was being released then. But it's
So this is 2004, and it says second studio album released by Eyedea and Abilities. And I think I vaguely remember that Eyedea got really famous for being like like a live battle rapper, and I think he won a whole bunch of like battle rap competitions. And that's where I remember that name coming from.
yeah, yeah. So he was into that, and he died young too, which is another weird.
Really, I didn't know he was dead.
Yeah, I think he passed away. I don't want to say he was in the 27 Club, but I think that is. He's one of the few rappers in the 27 Club. I'm not sure. I don't want to put false information out there on the
Well,
guy.
let's
So
see. We can figure this out.
yeah, 81 to 2010. So yeah, that's
28.
so pretty close, but no, not the 27 Club. But yeah, I don't know if it was drugs or
Well,
he took
let's see
his
what we got to say. There's been enough time to pass. Died in his sleep, found dead.
drugs.
Ruled an accident, respiratory depression caused by opiates. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So, but yeah, he was a troubled, artist, and I think that makes for some really raw content. And his songs are not political; they're more socio-cultural. They're more aimed at like the status quo of the time and like I really like Man versus Ape. That's probably my favorite song on there. Exhausted Love is the most popular one because it's more about like a guy and a female in a relationship, a man and a woman in a relationship. Yes, a hetero relationship. Oh, you don't hear much about those these days. But anyways, the man versus ape song is kind of interesting because it's like, and I want to read through the lyrics before I speak out of my ass here, but um, there is kind of like a atheistic, but also kind of like you're not really sure if he's anti-atheist or you know what I mean. Like it's that's why I want to read the lyrics because it's been a while since I heard this song. But um, let's here go back up just a little bit. So it says involved with a species evolving so slowly, genetically infantile, violent and holy. We think we're so smart, but there's not much to know. Caveman is still alive behind those robot eyes, fully controlled by 10,000-year-old instincts. Hands on the war button flinch and the world's extinct. This is technology for the barbarian. So it's yeah, it's kind of like I don't know. It's very anti-establishment. That's what I would say this song is. But you know, it's philosophical. You got to sit on it. You got to take it in and think about
I
it. And
like
I'm
this
not.
is
I
my
can't
I
tell
only
him.
breed with sex symbol worthy women.
Well, okay, and that's the other thing is his songs are very, I would say, multi-personality in the sense that like you can tell by his inflection that he's taking on a different aspect of his personality. So whereas today a lot of rappers are very like braggadocious and like they're just rapping about themselves, you know, you don't see a lot of like point of view rap songs anymore where a rapper will like put himself in another person's shoes in a verse where you like they do a whole verse through someone else's eyes. And that was more of a thing back then that and I mean maybe I'm just out of touch and they do that today, but um yeah, this song is it's very like I said, existential, it's a philosophical song, and I'm not agreeing with him either because he's obviously a troubled person. I mean, he died very young, was on opiates, but I think there's a sort of like genius also that you can appreciate from listening to his song. So, um, but yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the whole like we're just monkeys barbarian savages kind of thing, and that's what I'm saying about like is he an atheist, is he a you know, or is he just saying all this stuff to mock the paradigm, you know? That's more of what I get out of this song man versus ape. But if you want to go back to
I was just
um
looking too that this was 2004. So like how old? Okay. So he was a little bit older than we were when he wrote this, but he must have been like 20s. All right, and then the next album.
well, I don't want to just blaze through. Are we
What was
gonna go
there?
back to back? Because I just realized I did two in a row. So do you want to do your two and
Oh
we
yeah,
can
sure. I mean, I'm happy to just flow with this. This is very casual, but yeah,
which
I'll start with one of
which
my
one
albums.
which ones complemented the two I just talked about? Because you did say that, yeah, right?
Maybe Cannibal Ox, I would say, would be a nice transition from Idea and Abilities. So I'll pull up the
Yeah.
Cold Vein Cannibal Ox. I think that's a decent one. If I didn't screw myself by closing it. Okay, yeah. So Cannibal Ox, Cold Vein. This is 2001. Damn, May 15, 2001. This is like this album came out right before I joined the military, like right before I actually went in. So this was like one of the newest albums before my whole world got rocked. And honestly, I think some of my favorite ones were like Vane and F Word, and I'll just click on Iron Galaxy, I think though.
Vain is great. I like that song. I also really like now that I'm seeing the names of the song Out of the Cage was another good one.
I liked Painkiller.
It
This is so wild, man. Like my favorite ones have the least number. Like Painkillers looks like it's the least popular on the whole album. And the same with Vane, right? 11,000 versus what 112.
for
And
Iron
then
Galaxy. That's also the first song on the album. I'm sure some people are just going through it in order,
right.
but
Man, I really
Pigeon's
like Pigeon and Scream Phoenix too. Um
yes. Scream Phoenix is another one of these songs that throws, and we'll get to that with the next three picks that I have, but like, and I don't mean to step on your album here, but it's one of these songs that leaves ideas behind. And like you think about these words, like what's a mega Allah star, and then you go and look it up and it comes from something. This is how I started learning about a lot of this stuff, was just by hearing these guys reference strange, weird stuff in these songs. But yeah, that's a great example right there. Mega Allahs. I remember hearing that Mega Allah star.
Which is another great use of this Genius site, because I just clicked on it because I don't know what the hell Mega Allah star means, and it says Mega Allah represents his being one with God, but in a similar fashion to blah 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 blah. So Mega Allah star, almost like a Merkaba. I'm assuming like a personified Merkaba, like craft his bars.
Well, and keep in mind a lot of the spiritual, metaphysical, you know, information that these guys are drawing from comes from what? Like these black Israelite groups and similar variations of these types of movements. I mean, there's all sorts of different ones. There's the one in Georgia with the guy that got arrested and had like a whole, like, I don't know what it was made out of, like acrylic or something. They had like a giant like pyramid made out of like stucco or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was that was in the an influence on like the Atlanta scene with the whole AT aliens and all of that. And, Nuwabians, that's what it was, the Nuwabian movement. But a lot of this rap music draws on, you know, political cults and other weird aspects of culture that are kind of not talked about today because of our current political climate.
And the whole phrase of "Scream Phoenix" on here, there's a really good breakdown of what the song title refers to, and Vordel is basically saying that "Screaming Phoenix" refers to taking risks so that one may improve themselves in circumstances, and the example it gives is that the use of drugs as a means of finding peace and awareness. So it's sort of like that's kind of the risk, right? Like put your physical and maybe legal health into jeopardy for the sake of taking that risk. Kind of like the Phoenix is like, I guess, taking a
Yeah.
risk to set itself on fire.
I mean, I walked that line. I don't want to say it on the record, but I mean, when pot was illegal, I was committing crimes every day, So yeah, I get that, but I don't at all advocate people do hard drugs. And I've even walked away from advocating for psychedelics. I really think that that's something someone has to make on their own. I don't, um, you know, I don't condone it, but I understand it. I'm not like conveying some sort of sense of negativity on all psychedelics, but yeah, I don't necessarily agree with like, oh, do drugs to put yourself through the ringer. Like life's already hard enough, if they appear in your life, maybe there's a reason for that. But yeah, at
Well,
this
you
age,
don't have to you don't have to condone it because that's what the music's for.
yeah, yeah, I guess. It's your album, so but Vast Air is another great one. I like him.
And I like some of the imagery here where he says, "My feathers and flames are one skin," and that's kind of like this embracing of the duality of the good and the bad of the phoenix, and part of it's good that you're going to get reborn, but part of it's bad because you're going to literally die on fire, which probably sucks. So here, let's see what the next album is on your list. So we did DC Midi Alien Idea. Are we at self-titled now?
Yeah, yeah, did you wanna hit us with another album, though, since we covered two of mine?
I'll catch up. No, I'll catch up.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, Self-Titled and Buckwild, and these guys are in a group with, another favorite of mine who I've actually seen live in person. I went to an Apathy concert. So Apathy, Self-Titled, Esoteric, 7L. I believe these guys are all. I'm probably leaving people out. Oh yeah, Ryu is another great one. And then R.A. the Rugged Man, who you mentioned, is also on this album. But yeah, they're part of a group called the Demigods. They do some albums under that name. So that's kind of the fun of this music is like if you like one album, chances are you're going to hear the same guys on another album, and they do all kinds of collaborative projects with each other. That's, I mean, I do like the solo artists like Eyedea and Abilities. You know, there are very few features on that album as opposed to like this album or the one we looked at first was like every song has a feature. So I do like those kind of songs where people go verse for verse or each guy has a verse and they just go, back to back to back. So this is kind of in that same style. But if you want to pick a song from here, my top three favorite from this album, I mean, Eraserheads is great, but my top three would be Swashbuckling, Mad Ammo, and then There Will Be Blood. Styles Ain't Raw is also great, but if we're
Well, I'm
gonna
gonna go with just the one that has the most comments, which is Swashbuckling. And I'm not familiar with this album at all. Or Ryu. I don't think I've ever heard of Ryu before.
Ryu is really good. Yeah, he's California based. But yeah, so that's here, go up. So this is what I was saying before, like that what you're seeing there is not someone rapping "I'll hold on to the gun." That's like a clip from a movie. And that's the other thing is like a lot of sample from Juice starring Tupac and Omar Epps. So I've never seen Juice. I didn't even know that was from Juice, but it sounds so cool when you hear it. It's like, I'll hold on to the gun. Why should he hold on to the gun? Because I already got it, mother. And then you hear like a gunshot, and then the scratching comes in as apathy attacks like asteroids, avalanches, and you're gonna. I'm starting to feel like I'm gonna rap, but I'm not gonna. So yeah, so listen to this song, folks, if you want to feel what I'm feeling right now. But yeah, apathy. He is from Connecticut, as am I. So he's also Freemason, as are you. So you might like apathy if you haven't already heard of him. He's got a bunch
I
of
don't
great.
trust Freemasons.
Well, he's got a bunch of great solo albums, and one of them is Handshakes with Snakes that came out recently, and that
Mhm.
kind of goes into he's one guy that has kept up with the conspiracy culture and remain relevant in that way. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Apathy. Um, so you go down, you got Ryu. Ryu is just, I mean, I love a solar system with some nerdy equipment. I got the Ephatron cannon pointed at your position. Like this is something you're not going to hear on songs today because that's all become very taboo. But these guys drop the F bomb all the time, and me and my friends would always laugh because that's just our sense of humor. And some of the
Yeah, if you get offended by this, just don't listen to Necro.
oh god, yeah, no, Necro is bad. And that's the thing. Like as we go into Army of the Pharaohs, like there is an aspect to their music that's very like voyeur, not voyeur, exploitation horror movie, exploitation violence movie. Like they're playing into that hyper violent genre as a commentary on the culture that they grew up in. But when it comes to this song, it's just got like a cool factor. And that's the other thing. Like you can't get this from just reading the lyrics. Is like the instrumentals for all of these songs have actual instruments in them. They're sampling songs that have actual instruments. So they're not, they're not playing all of the instruments for these songs necessarily, but there's a style to that I really love it. I don't know. I can't put it to words, like the different horns and the different like little like sound effects and things that would normally be maybe in a movie soundtrack that they've applied to a rap beat. It just sounds so cool and takes you to like an era of America, an era of the world. I mean, it speaks to me as somebody who grew up on like Bruce Lee movies and A Team and that kind of stuff. Obviously, I wasn't around for that when it came out, but that's what I got my hands on. So, anyways, yeah. And then self titled is he's just got his own style. Like he's just so hard to put to words in that sense because he's got jokes. He goes over the line and says things that I mean offends me, like the rape talk. Like I'm not about that, you know, I'm not into that. But that's the persona these guys are taking on. It's like a hood gangster, and I don't think it's inauthentic either. Like these guys, like when they say they're gonna slap you across the face, like they mean it. Like they're not kidding around. Like these
Yeah, I
guys
don't
are
doubt that he sits at home, smokes, collects checks, and eats Doritos. That actually sounds
no.
like something that he might be doing.
And he's in like Tampa, like in a trailer park, like selling you know what with guns, smoking fat blunts. Like these guys live that life, and that's part of why I like their music because it is like I don't know. It feels more authentic, and who knows? They could be on some. I won't even say it because I don't even believe it. But you know, you hear that with like the bigger rappers, especially now with everything coming out with P Diddy, and these guys point that kind of stuff out. Uh, it's very funny. So, anyways, yeah. So I'll put the metal in your chin like Kanye's skeleton. You know, like they have he has jokes self-titled. I really like his lyrics and his whole persona. He's kind of got like a dirty South gangster kind of vibe, and yeah, kind of unique for someone like me who like Big L and like you know some of these other East Coast groups. What do you? I mean, I'm drawing a blank because I'm so into the underground rap that I'm forgetting a lot of the like earlier stuff. Shit, what's the group I'm thinking of?
Oh, wow, I was just looking, there had a follow-up album called 1990 More,
Yes,
that's I don't know if you've ever heard of Cellar Dwellers. That's one of my favorite, like, unknown groups of the, like, the late '90s too, early 2000s.
right. Well, and a lot what I'm trying to say, ooh, that's a good song at the end there. But Rapid Fire is a great song, but Buck's Four Course Meal is funny as well. But yeah, th- their influences are a lot of like the original rappers that were around prior to Tupac and Biggie, and during that. Mob Deep is who I was drawing a blank on. But like that kind of music I liked, but it wasn't until I found this music that I started going really deep into like listening to the whole album, figuring out what the lyrics were saying. Is this just I don't know, it seems more intellectual but also fun and kind of like it does reflect the like type of comedy I listen to now that I'm older. So
Well,
yeah,
Mobb Deep's a really good, like, example to even throw out there because, I think that's the first time I ever heard a rap song mention the Illuminati before, and that was a Prodigy verse where he says, "The Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body." And I don't
right.
know if that was like a reference to like a Tupac Illuminati or, but that like this was early rap music was where I heard about the Illuminati for the very first time. And I think
Well,
there's a Kill Army album or like there was a RZA album that had like a Jordan Maxwell quote at the
yeah,
end of it. And I was like, who said that? Like how, like I want to find that quote. Who like where were they saying that? Where's the book
yeah.
from? And that was like
That's
started down this whole path.
I almost forgot Wu-Tang Clan as well. And that's the thing is like you'll hear these guys sample those classic rappers that a lot of people are more familiar with, and they also draw from that like style of like taking, as I was saying at the beginning, weird clips and all kinds of different things as samples. But yeah, Buckwild and self-titled. Buckwild's a producer on the album. I don't believe Buckwild ever raps, but self-titled is great. And this is kind of his album with all his, you know, the people that he's usually on their albums. So
I'm
I
glad
like.
you brought this one up. I had never even heard of this album. I know who Self-Titled and Buckwild are, but I didn't even know about this or
Yeah.
the 1990 More. So I'm gonna have to grab both of those.
Yeah, and they're Florida guys too, so I'm sure some of those references that go over my head, you will pick up on, like, the more local stuff. Like, one of my favorite Vinnie Paz songs, he referenced, like, New Haven, Connecticut. He's, like, fro 95 up to New Haven, like, is in one of his lyrics, and, like, I could relate to that, you know? That's like, "Oh, shit, they're shouting out where I live," you know? It's a
This
cool
is like when
feeling.
the comedian goes on stage and it's like, "Who
Yeah.
here is from Philadelphia? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just crowd work."
Oh, yeah, no, for sure, but I mean, it's more authentic because he's saying, like, he's got, like he's got gang members that he's affiliated with going all the way up to New
Yeah.
Haven. So I'm not saying I'm in a gang or any crap like that,
I'll say
but
it.
it's
Mark's in a gang.
but it's just cool to I don't know, for me, especially when I was younger. Now, again, I don't listen to this music weekly like I used to, but it is fun to go back to every now and then. So now, Thomas, you should go because I want to think about which songs we're going to highlight for Aesop Rock because there's a few, and I need some time.
All right. Well, some John in the comments mentioned Binary Star Reality Check, so I'll just jump into Binary Star Masters of the Universe album. Have you ever heard of this group before?
Binary Star, yeah, no, you kind of pulled them out of the memory banks because that's another one like Cannibal Ox that I didn't really think of. And I actually used to listen to a lot of rap music through this website called 8 Tracks. And before Spotify did this, 8 Tracks would like curate playlists and give you like playlists based on what you're already listening to. So I found these guys like Cannibal Ox, Binary Star through that website, 8 Tracks.
So this one, Binary Star, was interesting because, well, first of all, I understand it's named after the Sirius Dog Star, A and B. Did I have that right? Sirius B. But that they are so close that until recently, a lot of people considered it to be one star, and unless you looked close enough, you could actually see that it was two stars. And what's known as a binary star is when two stars are so close that it's hard to tell that it's more than one. So the whole premise of the group was that they had these two rappers that were so damn good that they could like almost outshine each other, but they came together and considered themselves a binary star. I don't know. It was a clever little play on words and a phrase that I mean, rap album or a rap group named after the Sirius B star system. It's already got points. Like before I even hear it, it's got points in my book. And this is 1999, I guess. Yeah, late 1999 is when it was written, and it came out in 2000. I think this was one of the very first underground albums that was like, oh, this is better than typical underground. Because I used to just grab anything that would come out. I've got a whole bunch that I wanted to bring up, but literally no one would have ever heard of any of them. Maybe I'll do a separate show on like music you have absolutely never heard before. But Binary Star actually got pretty big, and damn, I'm trying to remember his name. It's like One Man Army, I think that's his name, or
Hmm.
one below One Man Army, and he has a solo album that was amazing that came out after this. So I don't know if Binary Star ever matched the energy of this particular first album. This is kind of a diamond in the rough, and if you
Hmm.
haven't heard it before, it's definitely worth a listen. This is Reality Check, but I actually wanted to go to I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which I mentioned is the lyrics that I sent to ODB, which you probably didn't get a chance to read, but that's fine. Right here, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's broken into two parts, and the first one is just In Jail Without a Bail, sung over and over again, and it talks about going to jail at 17, being cramped in an 8-man cell with 10 people, with 8 people on bunks and 3 on mats. So before he even turns into an adult, he kind of gets an idea of what life is going to be about. The one that I like the best is probably the part 2, which is kind of the follow-up version. And then in part 2, um he's talking about another one that goes through the exact same process, and they're basically just talking about I did what I or you probably wouldn't have did what I did to catch a bid, but I'm not you. I always wondered what that means. It says you probably wouldn't do what he did to get into prison, although I don't know if I guess I had always interpreted that line of to catch a bid. Maybe that was like how he got out of a little bit. I don't know. The crew on the street, they don't write letters. This is actually really true personal experience that I won't go into, but once you go onto like this side of the law, you notice that a lot of people just won't come around, and you can't go anywhere. You can't make phone calls to anyone. You can't go see anyone on your own accord. So you're completely at the mercy of who decides to write you a letter, who wants to come and visit. So yeah, this whole song, 1 and 2 of I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, is just about them going to jail and then understanding that, like, Cage Bird sings because there's nothing else for you. It's like you need some kind of semblance of sanity when you're in like one of these rough situations. So I don't know, this one hit me hard because I was also in the military, and then I went to military confinement. But even in the military, I was like, man, I feel this. Like I felt like I was in jail without bail for like my entire enlistment there.
Yeah.
Especially if you, I don't know, I want to get into the whole military background, but it is just like jail that you get paid a little bit more for. And I'll double up on mine. I'll go to Mind Over Matter, Zion I here. And one is probably the one that I listened to the most on mushrooms out of all the albums that I had. And the one in particular that I remember is Trippin', which I guess makes sense that you would listen to a song called Trippin' on mushrooms. But it's like they kind of turn really religious, I think. And Amp Live was, I believe, from San Antonio, and I got to meet him. I never got to collaborate with him, but I met him at a couple shows in San Antonio. But this song right here, and I believe there was another Zion I album that turns into like a Christian sort of angle, and you can see a lot of the original sort of remnants of that in this first album. But he's talking about the original master architect, this original intellect, and like he's
Whoa.
kind of describing this. Well, you're
That
gonna say a Mason?
No, but that's the thing there, like, what you gotta understand about this time period when a lot of this music was created, these guys grew up around, like, Prince Hall Freemasonry, they also grew up around, like, what was it? Who's KRS-One, like, I mean, he spells it all out, like, and that stuff is a part of this, like, black subculture,
When Nation of Gods and Earths and
yeah.
5% Nation, which is like in a subset of Nation of Islam, and they've got the
It's in
supreme
this
alphabet and
really
supreme mathematics and code words and secret societies. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like secret societies. I mean, they're all drawing on similar symbol sets and they're all interpreting the same kind of stories in different ways. And that's what's interesting about this music is like you don't have to listen to it and then that means you're going to join the same cult that this group ended up joining because it's relevant information that's being
But you might
used.
want to, but they probably won't let you.
Well, yeah, not me, but maybe you.
So yeah, every time you see a snake, you'll reveal it. I like this line a lot because it's basically just saying like if you pay attention to your instincts and you kind of like rest a little bit more on what this thing, the immaculate that's out there, that you'll sort of be able to see through some of this. And then here's the hook. I'll go over the hook. It seems like everybody's trippingers at me. Being normal nowadays, it'll drive you crazy. And this is like one of those quotes in a times where everyone's insane. Only the insane are normal, or I can't remember the exact quote of that one. And then working 9 to 5, no retreat. I mean, I felt that having my first job, I think around the time this came out in 2000, have $1 just to get something to eat. Man, I wish that was still true, that it only took $1 to get something to eat. This kind of shows a change in the times. I guess now it would be a shout out to Devin the Dude. He has a song about like homeless people, and it's called like the dollar ain't worth shit, or the almighty dollar is the name of the song. And one of his lines is, hobos used to ask you for $1, but now they ask you for three. It's like one of my favorite. And now it's like it's probably 5 or it's probably 10. But
Yeah.
crazy lady walking around shouting curses at the sky, and this is like that schizophrenic lady. But man, I really do feel that this is one of those instances where I was thinking like, I'm on mushrooms, I'm listening to this song called Trippin', and they're talking about this crazy lady that's shouting at the sky, but that everyone else is really the one that's tripping. So maybe she's the one that's normal, like this crazy lady shouting things and seeing spirits. And I just always liked that concept because I related to it in that state of mind where it's like I see it, and if you don't see it, doesn't necessarily mean that like it's not happening. And then a lot of this is kind of indicative of a lot of that early 90s and 2000s underground where it was pretty much nonstop criticizing what the mainstream would be. So they're just saying there's this whole rap consortium, a coliseum of fake rappers who tax human beings. This is essentially just grifters. They're just talking about, and I almost imagine this is like the maybe Jay-Z on like the cruise ship sort of time period, right? I think this is right around the same time that kind of came out. Big Pimpin', is that the name of the song? So there was a lot of like artists that would be completely at odds with the mainstream version of, you know, big diamonds and chains and everything
And not a cruise
versus
ship,
this
a yacht.
background. What is it?
I believe it was a yacht, not a cruise ship. I don't
Well,
think he
to me,
wanted
to a
to.
poor little bumpkin like me, dude, like anything over sort of like a
I
fishing boat
know,
or
I
a
know Pimp C was big, but he wasn't that big. He's not that big to make a cruise liner look small.
well, here's another lyric that kind of odes to that. Like, I do not need a beamer to validate my existence. I'm blessed in every instance. Like again, this is sort of like I got God, so I don't need a car, or maybe just not a beamer. You probably still need a car. But I don't know. This is just very sort of on the par for what you would expect from underground rap music from 90s to 2000. It was supposed to like be very specific to either spirituality, to politics, maybe to psychedelics in some
Well,
cases.
but that's the thing is none of it was homogenous. Like everybody had their own unique perspective and brought those themes into the conversation because that's what was popular in the alternative realm. And it wasn't like today where we have like these distinct tribes where you're like, you're given like groupthink, to go along with your new identity. Like it was very individuality driven, a lot of this music.
In this line, first a college degree, now a PhD. But if you've got black skin, you need at least about three. That was a really good line back then.
Well, and I mean it's true to a certain extent, but I mean now it's not as true because we have the whole, overrun of what do you call it? In job culture where they have a certain amount of certain minority group, right? Like this whole idea that nowadays it's skewed where the, average white person is discriminated against because they have these diversity what do you call it?
Quotas.
Quotas. Thank you. Yes. So I don't know. I think we've kind of crested that in a way, and now in a very
We've
artificial
solved it now. We're past all that. That's
no, in the
fixed.
most shallow way, they've like,
Well, that's why we voted for Obama. We got Obama in there and made him president, so that like all that's done now. Like board has been wiped clean, right?
that's
Right?
that's the impression that they want us to have. Yeah, I think.
And I just wanted to shout this one. This is the one that I also had in mind of being like sliding towards religious because I believe the Grouch is like a pretty particularly religious rapper, really good one too. Like not as a bad thing. And you can
Well,
just
and
see straight up it starts with Lord give me what I need. Like it's almost like a church song.
yeah, I would give Cannabis an honorable mention at this point because he kind of resembles that. Yep, Cannabis Channel Zero. I saw that earlier. Because he does have his own very pronounced spiritual perspective, and some of his albums go deep into that. There's one song that I really like that's newer called Bioluminescence, I think is the name of the song by Cannabis, and they use like a clip sample from like Abraham Hicks, the Law of Attraction channeling. So and they put like this spooky music behind her, and it's just very interesting. So yeah, Cannabis Zion one kind of reminded me of him.
What do you think this line means here? I study till my lungs are bloody.
You gotta smoke weed to study, dog.
Does it make your lungs bleed? I hope not. Maybe it's Newports with the fiberglass.
Yeah, that's the intellectual, right? With his smoking pipe or his pack of cigarettes, or me with my, chain smoking blunts. I think these guys are more into chain smoking blunts.
Yeah, Lord, give me what I need to lead them not astray. Like, I don't know. This is a very spiritual song, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like a Christian album. It was just a really good
Well, that
underground album.
it's not Christian, but there are Christian esque. groups with it, like the Rastafarian religion is has aspects of Christianity within it. It comes from the Ethiopian Christianity, right? Which I don't know the precise name for that, but there's tons of cultures within. I mean, obviously, all the people that were made to be Christians. That's a big
All right,
part of
we'll go to your next album now. So we've got these three. So these are the last two. So I'm assuming you're going to do Aesop Rock Float next.
Yes.
Here we go. Aesop Rock Float. And this was, I don't even remember what year this
Well,
came
Float
out.
is also the name of a song. So click on the album,
Okay.
the song. So
So
I like,
2000 and
yeah,
Float is the name of the song, but here's the rest of this one had 20 different albums on it, or 20 different songs on this album.
yeah, and Spare a Match and Basic Cable and The Mayor and the Crook are the three that I really wanted to highlight with
Let's
this.
do it in that order.
Yeah, so Spare a Match is great. And so Aesop Rock, he's a lot different than any of the other guys that I picked. So a little more similar to Eyedea and Abilities. He's still putting out new stuff today too, which is cool. Um, he's got he's kind of changed a little bit from the albums I like about him, but hey, that's what every artist does. They evolve. And some of his songs are cool. He was even like he did like a soundtrack for a film or something like that. I hope I'm getting that right. So, yeah, he's done some cool stuff in the past like 10 years, but the album we're talking about is like what he got known for is like this album and the one before it, which I think is his more popular album, the one that came out before Float. But I like Float because it's a little bit more eclectic. Where yeah, go to all his albums if you can. Go to the discography. Oh, that's the
That's
songs.
all songs. Here we go. Popular album. Oh, by the way, this brand new one, Integrated Tech Solutions, shout out to Romanus Records, which I believe helped make this Integrated Tech Solutions, like the special edition that had like little LED lights and crap in it.
It's really cool too. It's very different. Oh, okay. So yeah, Float and then Labor Days. Labor Days is like the album that most people would be familiar with when they think
That's
of
where
like,
I became introduced to Aesop, was this
yeah.
album.
Yeah, and this is like I believe it was
Oh,
Daylight.
Daylight, man, I love this freaking song.
Daylight is the song that like people know Aesop Rock for,
I
but
want to hit play so bad, but I won't. I won't.
it's in Float where he really kind of like touches this genius that he captures in that next album, and especially with the song Daytime. But yeah, this song Spare a Match is great, and I just love his poeticism with his lyrics. He takes it to a level where you really can't understand what he's saying with just one run through. You really can't. Like I've tried. His songs are like enigmas. They really are. So, and I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe they don't have meaning. Maybe they're meant to not have a meaning, but I think they all do.
I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember where AC Alone was from, but I think he had an album called The Jabberwocky that was like really occult, like real deep. And then I think Ladybug Mecca is from Diggable Planets. I think that's right.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, and Mecca too, like that's the whole five percenters, Black Israelite type of vibe with a name like that. But yeah, Aesop Rock. My my every little step set in a star, retina scarred, tread in a sled of bed bugs, got my dead head in a jar, crazy camper stamp blank on the mug of settlers registered, not protest nor approval. So like, like these aren't like the lyrics we are reading before were a lot more straightforward, right? Like these lyrics are very ephemeral. They're very wispy, like wind,
Yeah,
you
every
know?
clan, ghostly orphans, scared stiff in the bliss. It almost sounds like slam poetry. I'm getting like a Saul Williams, like amethyst rock vibes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And let's go to Mayor and the Crook because that one might be a little bit more easy to read into as well as like basic cable. But the Mayor and the Crook, I always really liked just the sound of this song and the way he kind of like changes his inflection depending on the perspective that he's rapping from. Because again, it's like a multi perspective, similar to Aesop or I'm sorry, similar to Eyedea and Abilities. Like they step into this realm of like, who really is rapping this song? You can't tell sometimes. Um, so, anyways, every tenderfoot cadet bettered slit throat percentages, chicken penmanship tied to the 13 knot. I arrange panoramics of a placid cataloging where wild dogs sing tailor made lullabies tried by my offspring. I'll bring the butterflies and he can bring the centipedes, and she'll bring the cadavers, set 'em free and let 'em feed. The deviltry penciled me in, but I slept thick through my alarm clock. Silly Billy hid in the barn while farmers charm the crops. I'm doing this such an injustice, and oh my god, if Aesop Rock listened to this, he'd punch his computer. But
He is. He's actually in the green room right now. He's going to come out here and just
punch me, dude.
yeah.
So yeah, so this is just it's amazing stuff. I love it, and I would love to interview any one of these rappers, even the five that you picked or the multiple that you picked, because I think these guys would just be great podcast guests. Um, but yeah, the mayor and the crook really like the. You got to go to the hook for like the more obvious stuff because the
It
verse.
literally just says hook.
Oh shit! All right, well, no, maybe I'm
Does it
thinking
say
of
it at the beginning? Oh, here's the hook right here.
no
Normal
more
pencils, no more books.
I built the city out of one brick. It had a mayor and a crook. I made the crook stab the mayor, then slay. Oh, you did it again. Then slay himself in the guilt. I stole the brick back and migrated east. Now let's build. I don't know. I just like
There's some
that.
masonry in that one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
He
Well,
stole the
hey,
brick, migrated
he could
east.
be a
Let's build it.
Freemason. I wouldn't be.
Well,
I wouldn't put it past him.
it almost sounds like he's one of the ruffians. He is the crook, the ruffian that hits Hiram Abiff, the mayor, on the head, and then takes the brick back and thinks that now he's going to be a master, craftsman or a master mason, but he can't be because that's not how you. I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, all right. So look at the album artwork with the red and the black and how he's kind of in the black in the void looking up at the red. Do you think there's any symbolism in that?
Well, maybe that's the brick. Maybe he's the crook in the darkness, and here's the mayor that represents the brick, the foundation of everything.
Wow. I've listened to this song probably 500 times and I've never even thought of Freemasonry. And it's just cool to have you here to
I
validate
mean,
that.
he
But
stole the
Aesop,
brick, he moved east, and then now let's build in the east. I mean, if you're talking about building in the east with bricks, I don't know, man. That's just like Masonic as hell. You
yeah,
think
no,
that Aesop Rock is a traveling man?
I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, there's thoughts that a lot of popular artists, that's how they get record deals is through connections and being in the right clubs. So I wouldn't put it past him. He's been, in the pub. He's been making albums for a long time, longer than a lot of underground rappers. But he's so good that, like, I mean, maybe who knows? I don't know. I don't like to mischaracterize artists like that because unless it's apathy, literally says he's a Freemason. Like there's no doubts about it. Whereas Aesop Rock, like maybe, or maybe he's like me and he's just interested in this stuff and puts it in a song.
No,
Like
no, you're not allowed. If you're interested, and that means you are one. You know how this works. If you
Cowan,
write a
dude.
lyric or if you write a comic or a song
It's Cowan
about
rap.
a thing, that it means you are the thing.
Well, yeah, that's 2020 logic, but yeah, the Mayor and the Crook, definitely a great song. Something.
Purged urgent. I just love some of the internal rhyming and like the what that phrase kind of conjures up. Purged
Oh
urgent.
yeah, his rhymes are unparalleled. There's nobody else that, and his name is Aesop, like Aesop Fables. So there is a sort of like he is kind of like setting himself up in that vein as like very lyrically oriented. And not everybody listens to rap for the lyrics. I was surprised to learn that when I was younger that I listened to the lyrics and most people listen to the beat. And yeah, so this is not everybody's cup of tea, but this is a certain mood that I like with rap, and it's a very different mood than any of the other albums I picked. Similar, it's more similar to some of the albums you picked. Like I would put Illogic and Aesop Rock and Cannibal Ox and Vast Air and even Binary Star, all in a sort of similar playlist of a mood within this subgenre. So,
And it's
but
wild, like, there's not a lot of, rap songs that drop Occam's razor, in the lyrics, so, yeah, that's another kinda, like, hallmark of underground rap, is that they'll just be dropping some, like, very specific philosophical concept that, you would have to understand what the hell they're talking about,
Well, and
which
look
is
at what he's saying just before that. He said, "Just numb to it, then shimmy the needle loose. I built a castle out of 52 cards, plus Joker's wit and image. Modern theory charges while remaining harnessed to the vintage." I mean, that there's tons of, and like you just keep, like, we could go through this frontwards or backwards, and
I love
it,
this too, Home Alone sipping Beetlejuice, so he's referencing 2 really popular movies in this line. I love it. I love this.
yeah. Well, and
So
also,
shout out Aesop. Come on both of our shows and do an interview or something.
well, hey, if we could get in touch with some of these rappers, we might as well just get them on a podcast that we co-host together, brother. Cook it up. Let's cook it up.
All right, let's see. I'll just go straight down.
You
Did I
did
do
all
all? Oh,
those
I haven't
three.
done.
You're down to Deep Concentration
Yeah.
and this album by Illogic. Who's Deep Concentration by? That's the only one
So
I'm not familiar with.
Deep Concentration is actually like a
So,
various album. It's got a bunch of different people on it.
okay.
And the one that the song, this is more like sonically. I really just like the sounds on this album, and I really like Planet Asia, Fresno State of Mind. But I was searching before we started recording. I was searching for like more than 5 or 6 minutes, and I couldn't find the lyrics to Fresno State of Mind anywhere on azlyrics.com, on Rap Lyrics, on Spotify. I just could like they have the song, but none of them actually had the lyrics, and I didn't think ahead to like write them out. So I just wanted to do a shout out on this particular album because it kind of mixes, like it says here, genres electric and hip hop. And I think that there was in this transition between the late 90s to the 2000s, a lot of hip hop artists were trying to figure out what they were going to do next, like sonically, and where RZA, he kind of made this jump. If you've seen the like the Wu-Tang TV series, they portray this really well, that everyone else is trying to and incorporate more like synthesizers, and they're trying to bring in like technology, and they're kind of like leaning into techno in a weird way. And RZA brings in like live orchestra sessions and records them playing like violin and playing oboe and bassoon and like legitimate
Yeah.
sounds that nobody else was trying to bring into hip hop. And on the other angle, the ones that weren't just doing like the low effort sort of like electronic sounds, they were kind of merging with what I think we kind of have now, like the modern like trap sort of sound, where it has synth, but it's like dirty synth, and it's worked in really well. And
Mm.
this, I think, is one of the very first steps towards that angle. Like this isn't a trap album, but it has a blend of electronic music and hip hop combined in a way that was ahead of its time and not cheesy. This is not like the cheesy 2000s sort of synth hip hop. This is like a different version of it. So, and then, like Space Travelers Bugging Out was a really good one. DJ Craze was huge at that time. I think that he was like one of the biggest DJs doing scratch battle competitions. Him and DJ Qbert, I think, had gone head to head at a couple times. DJ Cash Money is none of the same ones. So a lot of these are kind of like DJs that are blending in electronic music into what would normally be like a hip hop set. So I highly recommend this whole album. I don't have the lyrics because I guess they don't do compilation lyrics on Rap Genius.
Huh.
So I got this one on vinyl too. Like I really love this one. This one wasn't just picked out of nowhere. Like I've got multiple copies of this one, CD, vinyl. I've got it downloaded. I listen to it all the time.
Huh. Yeah. I'm familiar with only a few of those artists, so cool one. I want to run that on Spotify if it's there.
And then here's the big closer for Mark, Army of the Pharaohs,
Oh, and
Heavy Lies
also
the Crown.
I should say that I want to make a Spotify playlist for all the songs we mentioned. So
Oh, what a great idea.
just put it. I'll put it in the, because I can make like a public one, and I'll give you the link, and you could share it. Hopefully,
I didn't even consider that. That you're a freaking genius, man. I'll absolutely do that, and I'll link
here
it
for every
down.
episode.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I mean, and you don't have to go through Spotify. You can use like 8 tracks or another website like
I'm
that.
gonna use Pirate Bay, I'm thinking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, make a playlist that people can
Think
download.
think YouTube would dig me if I linked all of the songs directly
Yeah,
to Pirate Bay in
that
in
might
the description.
be yeah, that might be a reason to link them to YouTube on YouTube and everywhere else, link them anywhere else. But all right, so we're gonna look at every other album we've kind of skirted past, and that's fine because this is the album that I listened to today. It meant the most to me out of all the ones I picked in the sense that what it represents. Because really, I like all of Army of the Pharaohs. Every single album is great in my opinion. Um, and Vinny Paz is kind of he seems this might not be true. I'd love to interview these guys to find out. But he seems like the mastermind behind a lot of the Army of the Pharaohs. And for people who don't know who Vinny Paz is, he was in a group called Jedi Mind Tricks, and he's also done a ton of solo albums. So he's probably one of the most prolific out of all of these guys that we've mentioned. He still puts out albums today. And I don't know if he would be a guest on a conspiracy podcast because he does seem kind of politically opposed to some of the things that I talk about on my show, which is surprising to me because him and his crew were like where a lot of these ideas began with me. So again, that goes back to the whole cultural shift that we were talking about before. But I like what you said about the Wu-Tang Clan and the RZA and the orchestra, and because this is where a lot of this music I think draws inspiration, and maybe there are other influences beyond Wu-Tang Clan, but for people who aren't familiar with this music, like they do use a similar strategy that Wu-Tang Clan does, where they take samples, they'll use orchestral instruments in their instrumentals. So I
Just
just
pick quotes from movies that seem pretty
yeah,
deep. Like another, you mentioned the Jedi Mind Tricks, and their Violent by Design is a
it's
great
great.
example of those kind of orchestral samples. They got Planet of the Apes quotes that are sprung in it. They got a quote from the movie Pi. When I heard them sample the quote from the intro to Pi in one of the songs, I was like, "Oh, this album was made for me."
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and some of them are from the 90s, like some of the earlier albums by Jedi Mind Tricks are just really great. But Army of the Pharaohs is like a culmination of a lot of that. And 2014, I think they've put out an album more recently than that, but this one just hit at the right time. I was out of high school, I was out of college, I was hanging out with my friends, still kind of circling the drain. Oh yeah, no, so it's their most recent album. So yeah, me and my friends, like we started listening to Army of the Pharaohs together, and then when 2014 came around and two Army of the Pharaohs albums came out, it just blew our minds. Like we were like so pumped. We listened to the whole thing. And really it should be In Death Reborn and Heavy Lies to the Crown, because In Death Reborn has some amazing songs on it. Like God Particle is great. We should look at the lyrics to that since we're here. So intelligent infinity, malevolent epitome. They consider me as the most deadly weapon from Italy. That'll include the Benelli semi-auto artillery. I can't do it if you take
I
the
know, no,
lyrics.
no.
But I mean, I'm again, Vinny Paz would not just punch me if he heard me rapping his lyrics poorly. He'd probably set a hit
He'd
on me.
strangle you with a
So
rosary. That's his key
he,
move, man.
yeah, he is that gangster. I would never cross him. I have all the respect for Vinny Paz, and I just respect his intellect tremendously. Although him and I might not agree on everything, yeah, he's the man. And again, I think he's kind of like the mastermind, or at least the other guys seem to respect him a lot, and rightly so, because he does kind of bring the heat with every single song he does. And yeah, Esoteric, another great one. I don't see who you're looking at right now. Scroll up a little bit more.
This is still
For
Vinny
those two.
Paz, I believe. Oh no,
Oh,
Planetary.
yeah, Planetary. And again, like these Army of the Pharaohs albums, like it's verse for verse for verse for verse for verse. Like each guy comes in with a verse one after the other. And it's just I don't know, you don't see that a lot with rap today. You don't see a lot of group albums, at least the rap that
Well,
I
this is
see.
another thing that's unique to almost rap exclusively, at least for the longest time, where you would get an album and look at the back and like, oh wow, it's featuring these other 8
Yeah.
artists that I really like, and they've got these verses like that
Yes.
didn't exist in any other genre. Like you might have a rock album where like Carlos Santana plays
Right.
the guitar on one of the
Only
tracks, but
Santana, like Santana and a few others, but yeah, no, you're right. That's a great point. But go up a little bit before we get to Apathy's verse, because that's a great verse. Esoteric's verse is also good. So here, scroll down a little bit. I'm throwing flames at your brain like Ghost Rider. My flow's tighter. I'm Blakey Griffin with an open lane.
I don't
I
know
mean,
who that is.
well,
Okay,
yeah, I'm not a
NBA.
basketball fan either, but yeah, that's a basketball reference. Um, and yeah, there's just tons of stuff in all of these references, comic book references with
Yeah, I
Esoteric.
didn't even get this one. My flow is Bane, and my flow is Betsy Ross off Zoloft, which is the She-Hulk. So if
Right.
She-Hulk comes off for Zoloft, I guess that's like when she gets angry. That's a
Yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah.
nice little inside.
Oh yeah, Esoteric, he's a big comic book head. He's got a ton of those references in all of his songs. But here, now go down to Apathy because he's the conspiracy head out of the guys. Like Vinny too, but Apathy's really he takes it to another level. The God particle, Armageddon weapons in my arsenal. I'm the real deal. Fucking Alex Jones article. Hard as Arctic cold, my murders are nautical. Murk you in the murky depths where the screams aren't audible. And keep in mind, Apathy is from the state that invented the submarine. So that is kind of a deep cut there. But yeah, uh, I'll turn your brain to applesauce. Y'all are soft as fairies buried in terry cloth. Like that one stuck in my mind. I'm like, what's terry
That's
cloth?
a
When I looked it
soft
up.
as fairies buried in terry cloth. I like that.
Yeah, it's just great. And then self-titled back to back, Apathy and self-titled. You got to have them right after one another because they both complement each other very well. Um, and self-titled just takes it to a whole nother level. Like I'm not going to read some of these because it's just, I mean, for YouTube's sake, I guess. But yeah, I'm a dragon, you a F with a tape measure sword. Self-titled is a mother effing problem with germs that are infectious, attack like German shepherds while acid dissolves them. So like it's just I don't know. It's like horrorcore is a word I've heard used to describe this type of rap, and it definitely reflects like a Cronenberg film or like a, like something like a 70s exploitation film, like especially when you hear the different samples and the different things that they're using, elements in the music itself. But let's go back to Heavy Lies the Crown and go to the song called The Tempter and the Bible Black, because this is a song where Vinny Paz just kind of goes so hard as far as like content, lyrical content. Um, yeah, there you go. Tempter, yeah, the third song on the album, The Tempter and the Bible Black. And all of these songs on all of these albums are great, by the way. Um, so he starts off by saying, the God anonymous, honorably honoring Hieronymus, eponymous, the name of the life and death of the novelist, the seventh son of the seventh son is severing honestness, conquerors conquering every catty corner of cartilage. So it's like, who can compete with that? I don't know. I feel like today rappers are just like rapping the same word over and over again. And like, those are like multiple syllable words back to back rhyming in a way that not only works but makes an intelligent point, right? Like nowadays guys can't even rap a verse without using the same word twice at the end of a sentence, let
Damn,
alone do
shots fired at
multiple.
the Migos in the Versace song by Mystic
I'm,
Mark.
yeah, I mean
You
I'm
don't
an
like the
old
Versace song?
I'm an old head, as these new guys would call it, so they're not going to get insulted. This is old head talk right here. But
Are you an old head?
yeah, at this point, I might as well be with the music I listen to. It's all 20 years older than I am. So
I'm gonna have to do a special edition of Sound Science, like ignorant rap edition, because I love me some ignorant rap just as much as conscious raps.
I'm
Like
not the guest for that.
there's a healthy balance. You'll have to watch it though.
Okay. Yeah. You could strap me to a chair. Like,
I'll get you listen to Kodak Black unironically. Trust me.
okay. All right. So And by the way, in the right circumstances, I do appreciate some new rap, but it has to be in the right circumstances. I won't listen to it straight up. Um, but anyways, so
You're just an old head.
exactly. So then Planetary, I don't know, maybe
Yeah,
they take that
wrap this one for us, please.
okay. These ends get grandfather, got them rubber band dollars. Christopher Wallace building with Christopher Rios ends on mics. I'm Lucio rightfully. I'm so righteously. See, yeah, I don't like to say I'm righteously evil, because I'm not. But anyways, yeah. So they and again, like it's exaggerated in a certain way, like, it's kind of violent stuff too, I will say that. It puts me in a younger mindset. I don't know if I'll listen to this music in my 50s or 60s, but, I do think that it kind of expressed the young rage that I had in a more intellectual way, I guess. Gave me
Man,
an outlet
this
for
almost
it.
sounds like Vinnie Paz style lyrics from Esoteric. He's something about
Oh, yeah.
like vandalizing the Vatican, dicking
Yeah,
down Mary
trapped in the
Magdalene.
labyrinth, vandalizing the Vatican, dicking down Mary Magdalene, spit it without a pad and pen. I'm at a minute about smashing atoms to pieces. I ain't too bright when I fucked it up. I need to hear the instrumental. I could probably rap these songs with the lyrics and the instrumentals, but that's not impressive. Like that's not a flex.
It's
People
also not YouTube friendly.
exactly. But it's also like I'm not bragging about that. It's just again. And then yeah, apathy. I was born inside chemicals, edible liquid dripping from mechanical tentacles in a pod with embryonic fluid residue, optical scanning retinal. I'm a virtual vegetable. I leap out of my skeletal to open vortexical vehicles. I decipher hieroglyphic scripts on schedule, get into metaphysical
You
form
need
for
the breath control, man.
well, this is like I feel like you're putting me in like a reality show right now where I have to like do
I didn't say
karaoke.
you had to rap the whole thing. I'm not gonna
No,
stop
it's
you at
it
all.
I like these songs so much that that's the only way I can read them, and I know I'm doing a disservice to the song itself, so folks, just listen to it because these songs just the instrumentals are great. Like, I know I said I listen for the lyrics, but these songs, I also listen for the instrumentals. Um
Fragile as fraggle bodies. Kind of like that.
And then self-titled, he just has like this voice that's kind of like, oh, he's like, the tech ringer, death bringer, strangulation by dental floss. I'll make the toughest men feel menopause. You know, like it's stuff like that. It's very misogynistic rap. I will say all of it is very misogynistic, but um, it's from the 90s, it's from the 2000s, it's from that era. It's from a more urban, more slower socioeconomic background. I mean, this is the culture of the people. La Visarasta, is that right? Or no?
Barasa,
La Raza, yeah.
the
What's that?
race. That means the
Oh,
race.
oh, okay, never mind. I'm not thinking of the right thing then.
That's
Anyways.
like the Mexican pride
Oh,
is
oh,
Barasa.
okay. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm thinking of
I like this
something.
too. I'm Tampa's Beast.
Yeah,
So
he's
self-titles also Tampa.
yeah, no, that's who we were talking about before.
Okay.
Him
Okay.
and Buckwild are from Tampa. Yeah. And there's a few other rappers that are in that scene that you'll see on he's got another album called The Catalog, which is a great album. It's got like a shotgun on the cover. I think it's The Catalog, unless The Catalog is a song on the album. Just type in self-titled and Buckwild and get all of his albums. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Maybe
So
it's
did
not
it pop
called
up on that?
It's the one with the grenade launcher on the cover. Yeah, the catalog. There it is.
That's weird that it didn't come up when I typed it in.
I don't know why, but yeah, I could have picked this one instead of 1990
Oh yeah.
now. But
Lord
I thought,
Digga from Lords of the Underground.
and Way of the Gun. That's a great song. Also, oh, go back up. Red October. Um, or
Is that
maybe
the
it's
name
just
of the song?
October. Maybe it's just October, but there is a song called Red something with the guy October in it that I love. I don't know. I'd have to go into my playlist. I have a public
Damn, this is a
playlist.
long one. Holy hell. How many?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the catalog, dog.
Oh, wow. It's like over 75 songs on here.
That's the catalog, baby. It's the whole catalog.
I
Yeah, I
was
love
wondering when it was gonna stop scrolling.
no, and it's great, like, you could in it's, like, into
There's
the
a song called
50s.
Windows 98.
Yeah. It's I mean, deep cuts on this song for sure. Um, and yeah, I love
I'm gonna have to listen. Yeah, I've never heard of this album either. I'm gonna have to listen to this. And
it.
I'm sure you've probably heard of Czarface, but I've just gotta bring it up
Yeah,
because 7L and Esoteric came up,
yeah,
Wu-Tang came up, and this is a combination of 7L, Esoteric, and Rebel INS, aka Inspect the Deck from Wu-Tang
right.
together. And they've got, dude, like when it comes to incorporating hip hop with action figures and comic books and stuff, like I think Czarface is kind of doing it the biggest out of all of them. Like they got some sick. I think if I just do like an action figure, you can see that they've got. Yeah, look at this, man. This is so sick, dude. They've got like
Oh,
full
yeah.
blown Czarface action figures with like adjustable poses, everything. Like I don't know of any other hip
Well,
hop group doing it like this serious. I know Run the Jewels has got some stuff, but this one is
you're crossing my nerd wires here, because yeah, I was about to say, what is it? Magic 7? What's the name of the group? Super
Super
7.
7. Yeah.
Yeah, they make some really cool stuff that, like, crosses different, you know.
Right, but I guess the point being that that Czarface as a music group, like they start with that aesthetic. Like they didn't wait for
Yeah.
Super 7 to come around and be like, "Hey, let's make
Oh,
a
yeah,
toy."
no.
Like
No, no,
Czarface
no.
was like, "We're an action figure, comic book, hip
Yeah.
hop group," you know?
Well, and their lyrics read sometimes like a comic book. Like,
Mm.
they're bringing you into a world. One reference that I like that they make is, I think there's a song called, like, Tomax and Zammot, which are, like, characters from G.I. Joe. So, like, they're, like, referencing stuff that I think you would really appreciate as a Florida guy, as a comic book guy, as a nostalgia guy. Yeah, I'm
Well, I just
surprised.
need like a solid like 5 hours to listen to this whole
Yeah.
freaking
You
compilation.
need
Holy
any
hell, man.
lawns to mow? You'd be good. Listen to this whole thing. Mow some lawns. That's what I used to do.
There's some great names on this that I haven't heard in a while too. Styles of Beyond, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's Ryu. Styles of Beyond, that's the group that Ryu is a part of. So before
Okay,
you think,
okay.
"Oh, I don't know Ryu," but you do, because he's Styles of Beyond. I
And
forget.
I really recognize Elfudge, Mr. Complex. I don't know where from though.
Well, these guys are all Florida locals for the most part. If they know self-titled and they aren't, like, already, like, Apathy's obviously not, but a lot of these guys are East Coast guys, so you might recognize them from your back in the day when you're
Yes,
so.
that's what's interesting is that I never really got with any Florida-based musicians. It was always kind of like New York-based and California and a lot of Texas-based because that's
The
where I was out.
I-95 connection, like, there's a ton of, like, Army of the Pharaohs exists because of I-95. Like, a
Mm.
lot of those guys are just East Coasters who have similar styles, and they linked up, like, they're not all from the same hood. That's what's cool about this type of music, I think. It's more, because a lot of rappers, like, nowadays, it seems like they'll represent their city, so to speak, and, like, these guys did that too, but in a way that wasn't like, "Fuck anyone else from anywhere else," you know? Like, I'm down with my guys in Tampa, I'm down with the guys in Philly, I'm down with the guys in Providence, like, yeah, so I like that kinda stuff. It just makes me feel included as someone from Connecticut who, Connecticut never really gets any love from rap besides Apathy. I mean, people know about Chris Webby maybe, but I'm not really. He's cool. I don't know. I never really
Yeah, I
listened to
gotta listen to
him.
this, man. Yeah, this whole song seems like it's about Florida.
Yeah, oh, no,
Reptilians, Floridians,
yeah, no,
not the neck of tourists.
self-titled is the Florida man. If there was, like, a Florida man contest, he
Okay.
could win. He's legit, like, the Florida man meme. He's dope.
All right, well, I'll pull up my final album here, which is Illogic and this wasn't done in
Oh,
any necessary order
before
either because yeah, what?
before we leave, Heavy Lies the Crown, though, 'cause we kinda got on a self-titled tangent there.
Oh
Let
yeah,
me
let's go back
go
to that.
back to Heavy Lies the Crown and get into the Terror Storm song, and then we'll wrap up with this album because every song on these albums are great, like I said, but Terror Storm, Conjure the Legions, Becoming the Absolute, and The Tempter and the Bible Black are my four favorite on this album. And I meant to say Conjure the Legions. Go to Conjure the Legions because it's very relevant to the time period we're in. So it starts with Esoteric, and he says, in 95, this rap style was impressive. By 2005, most rappers lost the message. 2014, rappers wearing dresses. Shit is tough to look at like airplane wreckage. So, like I was saying at the beginning, like these guys recognize that rap has changed around them. And they, in my opinion, pay homage more to what rap originally was.
You know
Even though
what's
they
funny too,
evolved
though,
style.
is he's saying that rappers wearing dresses, but it almost seems like this was a dig at like their acting, like not masculine. But I don't think that maybe I'm wrong, but in 2014, I don't think that rappers were literally wearing dresses and like winning Grammys and like winning awards for wearing dresses.
Not yet. No, that's what I
Right.
mean.
But it's very prophetic, like
Yeah,
because it was almost like making fun
dude.
of where it was headed. I wonder if he realized that like that
Yeah.
was where it was headed, literally, like not hyperbolically.
Well, and both of these albums are prophetic. If you listen to them, if you like, I listened to these in 2020 during the whole pandemic, and it was part of how I got through. Cause like it was like a rage outlet, like when I would feel rage because someone told me to put a mask on in a damn grocery store, and I'd get in my car and listen to this,
I'll
so
strangle you with a rosary.
yeah,
All
exactly.
passing out.
Exactly. So yeah, I love these songs for that reason. And in a, I don't know if that sounds crazy, but yeah, I think people could relate to that. And yeah, tons of prophetic stuff. What was it? Kid Cudi that put their dress on. There was a couple other guys that did it. And I've had rappers on my podcast who've mentioned names that people would recognize, suggesting, you know, homosexual activities in return for opportunities in the rap business. So this isn't something that I'm sure these guys were unfamiliar with. Being as successful as they were as underground rappers is probably why they went underground and made their own labels instead of jumping through hoops.
You go to one Diddy party and you're like, that's it. We're just talking about like reptilians and Jesus now.
Well, but that's the thing. It's not even just Diddy, though. I had a guy on my show tell me that Suge Knight was into that kind of stuff, and that all the information now is saying Suge Knight's not even like he's not a part of that crew. I don't know. Maybe he is, but I think Cat Williams and Suge Knight are tight, and Cat Williams is spilling the beans on Diddy in the Shay Shay interview, or at least adding fuel to the fire of what rumors were already out.
He
And
also
now
mentioned the word homunculus in that interview.
no, that was the Joe Rogan interview.
Oh, are these two different? Oh, he was on
Yeah.
two different interviews dropping bombs?
So Cat Williams got well, first of all, Cat Williams has been he puts out strange social media posts every now and then. And he's very left leaning in his comedy specials. He had a bit where he was like, everybody needs to give Joe Biden a break. And I'm like, I shut it off immediately when he said that. But when he went on Club Shay Shay, which Shay Shay's a football player, um, I'm not a big football fan or any sport for that matter. So I don't know who Shay Shay is, but he just seems kind of like a big metrosexual, very in shape black guy. And
Does that mean he likes to have sex with subways? What does that mean?
you never heard of metrosexual before?
That's like when you bang taxis, right? Or you can only get hard in the back of a taxi.
No, look it up.
Oh, right now? All right, let's do it.
Yeah, you want me to explain it to you? You
We're
don't
gonna
know
get we're gonna get kicked off for
No, it's not. It's not. I don't
yeah,
think.
this looks like someone that likes to get banged in the back of a taxi.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that goes on in New York City, but no, it's a guy who,
Relating or denoting men who live in urban areas that enjoy shopping, fashion, or similar interests associated with women or gay men. I feel a little triggered. I guess I don't really enjoy shopping. Okay. Yeah, so if you like to shop and if you like fashion, that's it?
well, most of mainstream culture is metrosexual these days, but that has there are other factors involved with that. But I'm just saying he's dressed nice. He's wealthy, okay? Let's not get like he's wealthy, he's a football player. Of
Okay,
course he's
okay,
gonna look
okay.
nice. But he has like handbags and stuff. Like, I don't know. That's a little weird. But anyway, so he interviewed Cat Williams. Cat Williams spilled the beans on the whole, you know, Black Illuminati thing or whatever. And he also said Joe Rogan ain't gonna have me on his podcast because Joe Rogan promoting 6 other comedians that ain't even funny. That's what he said to Shay Shay. And then so Joe Rogan's like, come on, bud. I'm your friend, bud. I'll have you on my podcast, bud. Let's talk about cars, bud. And, has him on. And then Cat Williams is kind of like shallow breath the whole time, like, yeah, but Joe Rogan, you don't know that the aliens, they built the pyramids. There ain't no slaves that built the pyramids at Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan knows that, doesn't he? Doesn't Joe Rogan think that aliens built the pyramids or no?
Joe Rogan believes in a mechanistic, atheistic world, and he's trying to reconcile that with his psychedelic experiences. And it just sounds like he's playing into Terrence McKenna or Ray Kurzweil or give yourself up to the science gods, this whole BS. So I have a
Malcolm
lot of
McDowell's
problems.
probably in there somewhere.
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with my own opinions as it comes to Joe Rogan because I do like some of his podcasts, but I don't know. He bothers me when I listen to it. So it's weird. It's a weird dichotomy. But yeah, so where were we? What were we talking about? We were talking about
Well, it
Cat
started on
Williams.
rappers wearing dresses in 2014 is where that
Right.
rant
Okay.
started at.
Yeah, and this is a great song. Aside from that, Conjure the Legions is just one of those songs that keeps like building up as it keeps going. Like it doesn't necessarily like come in with a bang the same way some of the other songs do. It more like builds up to a crescendo of like, wow, I got to hear that again. So I had to mention this one. And I'm glad we also looked at the God Particle song because that's another one that's really good. But yeah, Mob Deep, see, grew up studying Mob Deep. So like, yeah, these guys, I think they. Oh, here we go. Vinny Paz, the Luciferian conspiracy of Forward Pass.
What's forward pass? Have you heard that before?
No, but that's why I wanted to look at these
And
because
sorry, every time I go to highlight something on this
I
damn page, it
noticed
like
that. Yeah,
jumps. It's only the first time I do it though. There we go.
I noticed that. It's fine. But yeah, so you're going down. Keep going. It was Vinny. Yeah, there you go. So the Luciferian conspiracy of Forward Pass. Let's look that up because he capitalized the word Forward Pass.
Divine Intervention, The Story of the Luciferian Conspiracy, a book from 1997 by Adrian Wentworth. I'm assuming that this might be one of the places. Forward. I don't see the word forward path in here. Forward pass.
Well, the term forward pass is the throwing of the ball in the direction in which the offensive team is trying to move towards the defensive team's goal line. So he might be using both terms as a play on words. Like, here, go
Okay.
back to it. So
Yeah,
Luciferian.
we're in basketball world again, so he's losing me a little bit.
Well, the Luciferian conspiracy of forward pass. I mean, forward pass is the only thing that, like, when I type it in, the only thing that comes up is that it's a football reference, but it could be something else. I mean, it could have like a historical reference that we're not picking up on.
Yeah, what the hell's
But Vinny
outside of
doesn't make
concept
a lot of
sports?
sports references, unlike a few of these other rappers um, that we've talked about. But who knows?
If I
Maybe he's
do forward
saying,
pass Bible? I don't know,
maybe
man.
he's saying maybe he's saying that forward he's using it as more of like the strategy that they're using the Luciferian conspiracy, like they're throwing it in our face. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of
All right, well, so
baffled.
now what's an indecipherable ocean mask?
Well, yeah. I guess he's just
It just
speaking.
rhymed. Did it just rhyme really well? It was like,
Well,
run it.
when you get to forward pass, balderdash, ocean mask, go and laugh. Like you do gotta, you
Yeah.
gotta kind of bend
Worked
things.
yourself into a corner there, didn't you?
Yeah, but I mean, we could clearly look up the code of Baphomet, and that's the thing with Vinny, like he does lean into an evil side of the conspiracies, and I wonder if that's not just like an inflammatory thing where he's like playing that character to like be like, I'm so bad that I'm like these guys that are controlling the world. You get what I'm saying? Like he's not exposing conspiracy theories as much as he's LARPing as someone in the Bilderbergs when he's rapping a verse like this. You get what I'm saying by that?
I get it. The breakdown is a little bit weird here because it says Baphomet was the idol of the Knights Templar. I mean,
You
that's
can't
the
you can't expect
that was
genius lyrics to give
I
you
know. It's just weird though because like that is literally the line that came from the royalty trying to wipe them out because they were owed debts. I don't know. It's yeah.
yeah.
Rap genius. Come on, one contribute. Let's shout out Capusta. Shame on
Uh,
you, Capusta.
that's what it is. It's this one contributor. Well, here's the thing. We are can
9 years
also
ago.
contribute. So we can also contribute.
What else has he done? Let's see what else he's been
That's
working
all he
on.
did. That's all he did. He's like, you know what? I gotta set the record straight
this
on
one this one line.
out of all the songs in the world, too. Wow. So, anyways, yeah. So I don't always agree with Vinny, but I think he does a really good job of kind of like leaning into that whole dynamic. So, but I feel like I've talked a whole lot this episode. So let's get to your album that you
Oh,
paired
that's
with
right. Yeah, we'll wrap it
Eli.
up. And this one doesn't really follow the same energy as necessarily an Army of the Pharaohs album. Illogic Unforeseen Shadows is probably what I would consider very subjective here, but like as deep underground as I was willing to go and still enjoy the music. There was music that went way more underground in like its aesthetic and its sound and its topic, but some of the times, man, it just went way too much into, I guess, what you'd call like backpack territory, and not as like a disparaging way necessarily, but it was just like I've heard this before. The same way that you're talking about, I don't want to hear Migos say Versace again over and over. I kind of felt that way on some of the outskirts of like underground hip hop. Like, oh, let me guess, you're going to talk about angles and you're going to talk about, like that, Occam's razor is a good example. Like once you've heard Occam's razor a few times in rap songs as a novelty, but if you open up an album and like every damn song is talking about Occam's razor, that's kind of the backpack vibe that I got from some of those albums back then. But so this is the deepest one that I still would accept and actually like really like sonically. And there was a follow-up from Blueprint, I think called Deep Puddle Dynamics, which kind of went over the line. There was a few other ones too. Not juxtapose, dirty jux, dirty jukes. You know what I'm talking about? Rusty Jukes. Rusty Jukes was another one that was in like the late 90s, and that one went a little over the line for me. So in my mind, Illogic is like right on the line. And the one song that I picked out of this Unforeseen Shadows album is called Hate in the Puddle. And it's basically about him walking by a puddle on the ground and he looks into it and he just realizes like I hate that guy. But he's talking about his reflection, but it's not real. Like he's not talking about his reflection as if it's himself. He's talking about it like it's a completely different person. Which I mean, it's almost like so obvious on the nose of the metaphor that it transcends the metaphor a little bit. I don't want to over pick it apart, but he's saying, I hate when it rains because in puddles I encounter this guy unable to give a rebuttal as rivers of pain floods his eyes, wondering why he's a gift with no purpose, a priceless, one of a kind piece that's worthless, grounded with no surface. Like this is rough, man. Inside he fights feelings that he was a mistake by God. I see confusion and self-deception and questions of intelligence. He holds an illusion of self-acceptance. So like this is pretty hardcore, especially for I don't know, I was like 16 or 17 when this had first come out, and I don't know, you're kind of feeling a little
That's around
down, a
when
little
I
bit
listened to it too,
ground. Like I was
yeah.
probably grounded. I was like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
grounded too, man.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's around the same time period for me. Not that I was that age when it came out, but that's when I found it. Blueprint, is
It's a
another
very
great song.
Black Pill song, like
Yes.
outside looking at his own life, looking for strength to carry on as a pawn in this chess game of existence. Like it's just nonstop. I don't want to clean my room, mom. But it's deeper than that. That was just how I was interpreting at the time. You know what I mean? He's talking about crying. Like this is very atypical for like a hip hop lyrics, especially in late '90s, early 2000s, to just straight up make a song about you crying, and how like life is not what you meant. Like this is the exact opposite of that braggadocious, over the top, egotistical like rap mentality that they bring, and which is interesting because on this exact same album, like I just picked this one song, "Hate in a Puddle," but on the rest of this one, there's another one called "Me versus Myself," and this one is kind of similar, but this is him getting into like a rap battle with himself. And then it like there's a tap on his shoulder and a cipher appears from thin air. Crew forms circular groups on blocks to shock the cyclone. I'm not gonna do all this. I'm gonna end up like twisting my tongue and get a cramp. But it's basically about him like battling himself and trying to up his own skill in a rap version, the same way that that Hate in a Puddle is sort of a similar idea, but it's like an emotional aspect of like a battle rap where he's trying to pick out the things that he doesn't like about this reflection. Yeah, there's so many on this entire album that I really like. Cinderella Complex is really good. The clock strikes 12. The Cinderella game pieces are delicately placed back on the shelf. uh there's not a lot of rap songs that use the word delicately, you know what I mean? Like these are sort of just like, it's interesting. It's not like the things that he talks about, the flow that he uses, but just the words himself, talking about crying and being delicate and Cinderella. Like these are words that I just didn't hear in rap songs at all up until this first kind of album, and it kind of rocked my understanding a little bit because sonically it's good. Like in my opinion, it was really good hip hop music, and they didn't put sort of like substance over form or vice versa. Like it's a nice blend of both of those. So that's my straight up review of Illogic's earlier stuff. And you can see he was on Labor Days with Aesop Rock. So they kind of ran in a lot of the same sort of circles.
Mm, mm. Yeah, no, like I said, they're in the same kind of mood for me as far as rap goes. Like Army of the Pharaohs is not the same mood as Illogic and Aesop Rock at all. But that's
With
why I wanted
AI,
to.
man, we can make them collaborate even if they don't want to.
Oh gosh, yeah, that would be interesting to see Aesop Rock on an Army of the
What I want to
Pharaohs.
do is I want to hear a Logic spit Vinny Paz lyrics, and then I want to hear Vinny Paz like rhyme "Hate in a Puddle,"
Hmm.
talking about delicacy and
Well,
crying.
the forward pass thing has got me stuck over here, but I did when I typed it in, I was finding more stuff about Dr. Malachi York. Um, at
Oh,
least
okay.
at least just from the phrase the Luciferian conspiracy. But yeah, when you type in forward pass and Malachi York, not much comes up. But I say that because Vinny Paz is somebody who referenced Dr. Malachi York a lot. So maybe he's referencing something in that world, but I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him to say football is satanic. Maybe he's saying that football is Luciferian. I don't know. I mean, it does when you look up the forward pass, it connects to Jim Thorpe and the Carlisle Indian School, which was not a great place. You know, they were re-educating Native Americans away from their original culture. But I don't know, it seems like forward passes made football safer somehow because it became less like rugby where they were like tackling each other every play and more there was more they had more ability to like move the ball forward across the field. Again, like I imagine you're not much of a sports fan, neither am I. So this is not our
Yeah, this is
area of
going way over my head right now. I'm trying to
way
understand.
over our head. But I'm seeing Yale and I'm seeing so now I'm starting to be like, maybe there's something to this where football being such a military sport, there's some sort of Luciferian conspiracy in it that maybe Malachi York talked about, or maybe Vinny Paz is again just trying to put two phrases together to accomplish a rhyme, and there is no meaning there. But
Damn, dude,
again,
this
like
is nuts. How
it is a
long this article on Forward Pass and all the names and the dates. If I go up here and I search for Franklin scandal, I don't think it's going to give me like 1/10 of the detail and the dates and the
no.
names that it's
Yeah.
given me for Forward Pass.
It's sad. Yeah, no, it is sad, but I guess we hit on something that is kind of pivotal to football there. I'm sure football fans would understand how that changed,
Look at
football,
that.
but yeah, look at
The
that.
whole article for Franklin's scandal is
Like
like
7
5
paragraphs.
paragraphs.
Yeah, tops 7. Yeah, wow.
Forward Pass is like a freaking PhD dissertation.
Well, that's the thing, it's like, clearly they've got the whole country entranced on things that aren't, not saying that football isn't significant, 'cause it helps people in a certain way, there's a value to it. I'm not trying to insult sports fans by what I'm about to say, but it's bread and circuses. It's a distraction from the real value of life and the life-oriented culture that humanity used to take a part in. Now we focus on these games that are about competition, and we've skewed ourselves to think it's about, athleticism and the improvement of the body, but it's actually a slow destruction. You're mimicking war, you're mimicking these things that are destructive inherently. And even if sports had a spiritual connotation in their beginning, we've lost that, and it's become a corporate exploitative, um, again, military-esque practice that has only entrained generations of people to become more violent in some ways, maybe less violent. I don't know, maybe it's an outlet for what would otherwise be violence, but we can make the same argument about rap music and how rap music has become an outlet for crime. And a lot of the albums that we referenced, well, the albums you referenced are definitely not the same quality as the 3 albums I referenced from the Army of the Pharaohs crew, because that's more of a gangster rap, angry, aggravated, antagonistic perspective. The more reflective, introspective rap that you picked, and some of the, like, 2 of the albums that I picked are more introspective.
Yeah,
Like
why are you
that,
so angry, man? And you're calling sports fans smooth brains here on a live show. It's a little bit disrespectful, but I'll allow it.
we're 2 hours in. You can't just let me rant and then 6 minutes into my rant cap me like that, bro. Come on now. Come on now. But yeah, no, I think, it might be a far field from my personality. Maybe people would like be surprised to find out that I listen to this music and I'm not like a deadhead or something like that. Cause I think I give off that vibe of like, oh, he probably goes to like fish shows or
I
whatever.
was gonna say, yeah,
And
dude. You got a fish shirt in
I
your closet, do you not?
no, dude, I had a Grateful Dead shirt and I stopped wearing it because I felt like a poser, and I realized like I only like one of their songs, so why do I have this? But
You know, growing up, my dad had an entire room that was just nothing but records. He still does, but I remember growing up and I would go through and look at all the album covers, and I always came across, I don't know which one it was, but there was a Grateful Dead album, and it has like a skeleton wearing like a bunch of like roses or something on its head, and there's like flowers all over the place. And he would never put it on. And for the longest time, I was like, man, this is gonna be like something really adult, like really hardcore. There's a freaking skeleton on there. They're probably like screaming and talking about murder and all this stuff. And finally, when I was old enough to be like, can you please put this on so I can hear it? And he's like, this? You're not gonna want to hear this. I'm like, I can take it. Don't worry, I can handle it. And he puts it on, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? I was
you're probably
expecting
like,
like
"Dad, are you
Metallica or
gay?"
something. Biggest letdown ever. And honestly, I've been biased for my entire life now about Grateful Dead, because every time someone brings up
Oh,
Grateful Dead, I just remember the disappointment at expecting to hear like Danzig or something, and hearing freaking Jerry Garcia like pluck wistfully away on his strings.
no.
Yeah, it was
Da-da-do-do-do-do.
not what I was expecting, man.
I'm sorry to say that about your dad, but that's what I would say to my dad if he played Grateful Dead. I'd be like, "Dad, are you gay? What's this?"
Well, he
But
never played it, which is why I always thought it was
right.
because it was like too
No,
extreme
he's a
for my
collector.
little
He just
ears.
had it. He didn't like it. He just had it. I
Well, he
respect
worked at
that.
a record store, so he got
Yeah.
to bring home all the records.
Yeah, no, I get that, and sometimes you like an album for the artwork, like, you don't even listen to, and I'll admit, the artwork's cool, that's why I had the T-shirt, but I'm not into the whole dancing bears and all that, and, like, the festival, and there's some, like, local, cover band that does Grateful Dead shows that some of my friends used to go to, and I would always skip the invite because it just wasn't my scene. I'm not into that kind of thing. And I like back to the hard drugs conversation, like I'm not into that either. And that's a big part of that whole scene is like do these like sort of semi psychedelic hard drugs, like what do you call it? The balloons and then the ketamine and all that stuff.
Balloons of
Yeah,
what?
what
Nitrous?
nitrous. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're
That's
crazy.
hardcore. That's semi-hardcore.
Yeah, dude, that stuff's bad for you, dude.
What? No way. You're tripping right now.
Well, that's the
It's
thing.
it's bad for you, not in moderation, but nitrous
There's
was
all this
discovered by Priestley
disinfo.
in, like, the 1700s, and dude, they used to sit in a room filled with nitrous for hours on end, and we're talking about, like, like, highbrow scientists, and
Yeah,
they used to
bro,
go
but that
town to
stuff
town and charge people to huff nitrous.
no,
No?
that's unhealthy, dude. Look at anybody who's into that, and you're not
Well,
looking
see,
at a
but
healthy
you're
person.
we're talking about going over the line because what happens is
Yeah,
that it causes like a B12 deficiency and it can absolutely rock your world, like to the
yeah,
point where you can't recover from it because it
yeah,
starts hurting like your nervous system and I think your bones or something.
yeah.
But in moderation, like
No.
and I got this is a hill I might die on. There is a book called the the anesthetic gist of philosophy. I think that's what it's called. The anesthetic revelation of philosophy. And this is a guy that went to get his tooth pulled. I don't know if you've seen this Occult Book Club episode that I did with Juan, but it's a guy named Benjamin Paul Blood, I believe, or Benjamin Blood Paul, and he goes to get a tooth out, and he's a philosopher. He said he's like read Hegel, he's read Socrates and Plato, like all of the things, Neo-Plato. He goes to get a tooth removed in his like he's like 40, and after he's walking back home, he says for the first time in his life, he understood Hegel completely. He understood like the most complex philosophy, but by the time he got home, the knowledge had completely escaped him. So he went back to the dentist and he just was like, I don't need my tooth taken out, but what I need is a whole bunch of that nitrous. And the dude spent like the rest 30 years of his life until he was an old man just nonstop doing nitrous and reading philosophy and trying to bring back knowledge from what he claimed was this like philosophical realm that he could only enter when he was on nitrous. But he did it for 30 years responsibly, allegedly.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna condone any of that, but
Well,
I
my
think
sponsors are
nobody needs
big
my
nitrous, so
approval
I'm biased.
anyway. So I'm just saying I'm not into that. But I just get I just get worried about that kind of stuff because like I don't know. I just feel like I already have a loose relationship with sanity. So I don't
Well,
need
I
to.
think the problem that a lot of people that end up going the nitrous route is that they don't realize it's not just nitrous that you're adding to your body. What you're also doing is you're displacing oxygen that's supposed to be there in your brain. And if you displace too much oxygen in your body, you're basically suffocating yourself, but you're having such a great time doing it and you're inebriated that you don't realize that you're actually like starting to die. You know what I mean? And if you do that too often, people's tongue, like their lips will get all blue and like bad things can
Yeah, you'll
happen.
become a Grateful Dead.
Right. You'll start liking fish. That's basically what happens at the end of that journey.
you'll be
You put on a fish
grateful
album and you're
dead.
like, hey, this isn't actually that bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's part of it, I think. Well, that goes to the whole Laurel Canyon CIA meddling and reducing the value of the music, but there's a whole argument that jazz began this whole thing. So like when classical music strayed into jazz, that represents like the breakdown of order and harmony in music and therefore consciousness and culture. So anything after jazz is discoherent and classical music is coherent and is life affirming. So I say that as someone who's never really listened to classical music. I listen to a whole ton of classic rock, which I'm sure is probably not good for me either. So
Nowhere the same as classical, by the way. Classic rock's
well, yeah,
they share the word classic, but they're
that's
not
it.
that
That's
similar.
the only similarity. Yeah, no, we should do an episode on classic rock and which rock that I do like. Although I love the Grateful Dead art, I think it's really cool.
Well, this is the one. This is the one that I always saw, and I know this is a puzzle, but I think my dad had like a picture disc, and every
Okay.
time I saw this, I was like, "This is going to be badass." Whatever the hell this guy's got going on, Like he's a hellion. And there was
Well,
another
yeah, you
one too.
expect it to sound like Led Zeppelin the way the album cover looks, and it
And
sounds
Blues
like
for
Right.
Allah, which is actually legitimately a good album, but it's not what the album cover makes it look like.
No, this looks like Iron Maiden.
Right? That's I guess that's what I was expecting. I was expecting
Yeah.
like that's Eddie, right? Doesn't that look like Eddie?
Running through the hills. Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like. It's well, and I wonder how much of these guys just shared the same artists, you know? So like Grateful Dead, maybe they liked picking different styles instead of sticking with one guy. I mean, because all the Iron Maiden album covers are the same thing. It's the same thing, just in different themes, you know? You have like a World War One pilot, you have like a like a dead mummy guy, and then the whole album's about that too. I like Iron Maiden. They're kind of cool, but that's like nerd rock, you know?
And we didn't get to bring this up. I guess I'll do it really quick. But
Yes.
you wanted to bring up nonfiction futures now, which would have been three. I guess now it's three in a row. In three episodes in a row, we brought the same album up. But we were talking about the artwork, and this artwork, I think I've got the poster of this somewhere buried in the back of my closet, like a signed print from the original artist. And the original artist is a guy named Mir One. And I'm willing to bet some serious money that you've seen a bunch of his work and maybe just didn't know that he was the one behind it. So here's
Yeah.
one of the biggest ones that a lot of people have seen, this Freedom for Humanity, where it's got like the Illuminati sitting around with a monopoly board and they've got like these slaves that are holding it up on their backs. This is also a really popular Mir One painting that he's done like multiple murals of and stuff.
Oh, you see that in like every conspiracy documentary, which is a
Yeah,
whole
and he almost never gets credit. I've seen
ever.
so much ripped off Mir One stuff on like
Yeah.
shirts and stickers and skateboards, and like I'm pretty sure he didn't license any of those.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's the original one. He's got so many. I highly recommend just going down a Mir One rabbit hole. Like this guy makes the kind of um artwork that matches the kind of music that we all like, I think.
Yeah, well, and also kind of matches the podcast that I think I do. I mean, I'm not saying I'm as profound as this, nowhere near it, but I think this is a big inspiration. Is like, we're in a oratory medium. We're just talking. It's just conversation. People like it. You and I have a friendship. It's different than like a guest. If I have a guest on the podcast, it's a little more polite. A little bit more reserved. But this music, the art, everything. That's why, again, the compliment that I gave you at the beginning of the shows, all the stuff you're doing is so cool because it is multifaceted. And the conversations we have really only capture one facet of it. So a show like this at least gives people a gateway into some cool music. For me, it was the other way around, where the music was kind of like a gateway into a lot of this like conspiracy stuff that I now read about. And yeah, now I know about Mir One and can look for some of this art, because I would love to just type in Mir One style on Dream Studio and see what the AI gives me. I hope Mir One would probably hate
He
that
would
though.
punch you in the face just for saying that, dude. Look, just as you said that, this is him looking at you like, you said what?
He doesn't like AI, huh?
I mean, I would assume not.
Okay.
I mean,
Oh,
dude,
I
it's a
thought you were
very
like
touchy
referencing
subject.
like, but that's the thing. Like a lot of these guys don't do interviews. Like Banksy doesn't ever do an interview, right? So like, how would you know? Maybe they're down with AI. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, I'm using it.
I actually reached out to Mir One
You're
this
using
week,
it.
just to see if I could get because I never collaborate with him or anything, but a long time ago when I released my very first comic, I did a giveaway, and the giveaway involved some Mir One exclusive prints that he signed and everything. So I tried reaching back out to him recently to see if I could get an interview. I would love to, man. Look at this. This is kind of the same as that nonfiction where you've got them doing this weird sort of like blood magic and like an old tome. They've got like alchemical symbols over here. Here's an all-seeing eye on like a little Joker looking dude, like smoking a blunt with a gold Freemasonic tooth.
Have
You
you
know what I
ever
mean? Like
seen
I just
the
love it. Just symbols
have you
there. The double-headed eagle as the US seal.
have you ever seen the movie Society?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I
what
did
that.
a deep dive. Oh, and let me give you this too. If you want to look for something else to collaborate on, I've got a site called Conspiracy Cinema, and if you look on here, I think yeah, here's Society. So right here on Society, you can click on it and it'll bring you to a show that I did where we break down all of the Society movie.
Well,
But
do
at the
you
very
talk
bottom of
about
this
that?
page are movies that I haven't seen yet that I want to watch with somebody. If you
Oh,
want to like break any of these down, just let me know.
well, so I'll just say right now, I've been meaning to watch Under the Silver Lake, so that could be one that we could do. Um, I
Right
like the
there.
movie
It's on the list.
Strange Love. I like the movie Clockwork Orange. Just trying to see what else I recognize here. Red Dawn. I would love to watch that movie again. I watched that when I was younger. And oh, Steven Snyder just did a whole breakdown of Midsummer on his Patreon, which you might want to reach out to him, aka Recluse.
Steve Snyder.
Yeah, you know Steve, right?
Do I?
Well, maybe not. He was on my podcast a couple times, and I was a guest on his show once. He's been a guest on the Higher Side Chats and has his own
I don't
podcast.
listen to podcasts.
Oh, jeez. Well,
It's not personal. I can't hear other people talking.
well, I'd say
I
that
can't
puts
get
you at
anything done. If I hear
an
someone
advantage.
talking, I can't focus on whatever I'm trying to do.
Well, maybe you don't drive enough. Well, I've seen
Well, that
that
was
movie.
the thing, dude. When I used to drive to Disney every day, it was like a 2-hour drive there and back, and that's where I got into
Yeah,
podcasts to begin with. But the second I left that job, that was the that was literally the end of
yeah.
it.
No, I get that. Yeah, I usually, if I'm sitting around the house, I'll either be doing something or sitting at my desk listening to a podcast. Like, why am I not doing anything? So yeah, it does feel unproductive if you're just sitting down. But yeah, no, when it comes to these movies, I'm seeing a ton. I could just sit here and pick ones all day, but that
Well,
won't
let me
be.
know, man, for sure. Like I'm ready to start knocking some of these out. I've seen maybe like a quarter of these. So a lot of these I haven't ever actually seen before. Or like for example, Cool World. I think the last time I saw Cool World was in the 90s.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down. I'm interested to watch shows or movies that I haven't seen either before or don't recognize. So yeah, I'll take a look at the list when I get some time. And yeah, just on the point of that one thing you pointed out, it's like in that movie Society, they were talking about how Salvador Dali and the whole impressionist movement sort of blends into that world. So that could be a topic to explore. I have a book about it that I've been meaning to do a show about. So
I mean, Society in a weird way, the movie Society, not actual society, but it almost paints a picture of like this is gonna sound weird, but like the good that like the elite society can do. And not good in that it's good for the like the lower classes, but if you were to isolate high society as it's portrayed in that movie, they truly have come together as like, the whole thing of like we are one. You know what I mean? Like how liberating would it be if we truly acted as we are one? And that is what the elites do in the society movie. Is just incredibly grotesque the way that they go about it,
yeah,
but
it's like
they are all the same being.
it's like this surrealist Dolly kind of like
I always say like Voltron. It's like Voltron meets spirit cooking.
yeah, there's some Transformer type stuff in there. Maybe Power Rangers when they all join
Yeah.
together.
Power Rangers meets Marina Abramovich.
Yeah, they all Power Ranger up together and commit awful things. It's great for the world according to Thomas if done right. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm just saying it represents a good aspect of humanity, not that it's happening within a good
Well,
niche of humanity, but
have you ever heard of the concept anashiodromia? I might not be pronouncing that right. So it's the tendency for one absolute to bring forth its opposite. And this is a phenomena we see in nature pretty obviously with certain like let's say you have a group of deer that do really well. There's this particular plant that they're thriving off of. Well, now the natural opposite of a deer, a wolf, is going to have an advantage to thrive. So then that will follow a period where the wolf is more, populated than the deer. The deer becomes scarce, right? And then the wolves start to die because now there's less deer, right? So enantiodromia, it's a phenomena that expresses itself in consciousness characteristics in society as well. So maybe what you're looking at with that is a little nuanced in the sense that, like, yeah, these things that seem evil can sometimes take on a aspect of good in a way that seems almost like nonsensical, or uh maybe not nonsensical, but like, just unordinary, or what you'd least expect, if there's a better term for that. I don't know, but yeah, I do think that there's something there with what you're saying. I'm not just saying that to throw you under the bus, but I've said a lot of things on this podcast that people could
You
clip
rapped a
and
lot of things too.
yeah, well, catch me in my car driving down the road, you might hear more.
I think we can get you out of that a little bit more. Maybe we'll start
Well,
doing
I
like,
used to do it on Instagram, but now Instagram locked it down. So whenever you're playing a song in an Instagram live or a story,
yeah.
they immediately turn you off if you're
Yeah.
listening to something that's copywritten. So
That happens to my own music. I've done that before where I had my own music playing in the
yeah,
background and I tried contacting the distributor and they're basically like, it's an on off button. Like either it's being tracked or it's not being tracked. And you don't really have the granular ability to say like approve, disapprove.
right, right. Yeah, it's a weird place to be in. I've seen a lot of podcasts just kind of skirt the gray area where RSS feeds aren't really being policed right now. So you can do kind of podcast audio only shows where you play music and you won't find any penalties. But I think the day will come where all of that will be retroactively penalized, and that's why I've only used music that I have the rights to use in my podcast, and I like having music in my podcast, so I have to like pay for it, which is unfortunate because I would love to just use any song I like I've heard other podcasts do. But yeah, that's just, I don't know, that's just goes against my ethics, right? I wouldn't want someone stealing my podcast without my permission and taking my conversations and making money off of them. So why would I take someone's song and do the same with it, right? So yeah,
Well,
I don't
AI's going to do it
know.
for you now. So you don't have to worry about it.
Well, that's the weird thing is like we're gonna enter into this world where, yeah, maybe something will be a minutia. There will be a minutia of difference to where it averts the, whatever algorithm is looking for copywritten material, and you're still having the experience of listening to this copywritten song, but without maybe a few small unnoticeable differences that would be, noticeable to the algorithm.
Well, and speaking of, I just need to throw this a little shout out since we've been talking about specifically rap today. This is the tinfoiltrap.com, and it is all original songs. Many of them were exclusives that you won't even hear anywhere else. From Nick Natoli, Truth Sika, Joel Thomas, Venice Beach Dub Club, shout out Seth, Mad One, who is an OG hip hop legend on the Wake Up Show, and many others. I worked with him for a few number of years when I was in Texas. Spade Morningstar, he's got a really great song on there. True One's another one that I've worked with before, Sean Chris, and then just a whole bunch of various tracks on here. Some that I worked on, some that maybe I didn't. I
Some
highly
AI
recommend.
generated, maybe.
What's that?
Some AI generated.
I wouldn't know. I don't know. It's hard to tell these days.
Yeah,
But
wow.
I
It's
recommend
so
that
hard
you
to
listen to all
tell.
these and see. And what do
I
you
s-
think?
it's so hard to tell. I wonder which ones are AI. Hmm.
So
Well,
yeah,
I'm
I've got
thinking,
a whole bunch of songs now on my SoundCloud that you should be able to just go and listen to and use in videos for free, and they're not monetized on any of the platforms, so you can keep using them on
yeah.
a bunch of different platforms. So
Well,
on my
I'll
Sound
say
Scientist,
I'm not seeing a few rappers that I've worked with on my podcast. Destiny Lab, shout out to them. They're great. They made the theme song for my show that everybody loves. The
anyone that
beginning.
wants to have their music on this site up
But
here, just
I will
contact me.
Yeah, well, them and then Rhyme Waves too is another guy that's been on my
Oh,
podcast.
you're that's yeah, I'm totally messed up by not having him
It's
contribute.
alright.
That's
No, it's cool.
well,
I'll
that's
let him
why
know.
this
Maybe they can check
turned
it
into
out.
a website instead of like a straight up album because I knew that it was
There's
gonna
more.
constantly people wanted to add their music
Yeah,
to it, so I'm almost seeing it as like a growing playlist.
yeah, well, then I'll throw 2 other guys in, Tao Tao Shu, who's on Instagram, he made a song that I usually use for the outro called Soul Trap, and it was I think he already wrote it, but then he, like, like, he changed some lyrics, so there was, like, a shout out to me in there because I like when the songs that I use at the end and the beginning are unique to the podcast. You can only hear them on the podcast, you're not gonna find them anywhere else, but, so yeah, Tao Shu is another one I gotta give a shout out to. But, yeah, I'll keep that in mind, and I'll send a message to them unless they see this themselves.
Oh, speaking of, unique, music just for a podcast, here's a little sample of a couple that I haven't played yet.
Sound science. Let's talk about frequencies. Oh yeah. Sound science, lyrics, music, and secret things. Oh, sound science. Yes, sound science.
Sounds real. Here's another one.
Sound science. Let's talk about frequencies. Oh yeah. Sound science, lyrics, music, and secret things. Sound science.
I mean, it's sounding
Female
okay.
and a male vocalist in that one. That's great. It reminds me of Iman. You know who Iman is?
I do.
He's great. He does some really good hooks and for like different Vinnie Paz songs.
I've got like 80 different songs that all have the exact same lyrics and a bunch of different genres.
Sound frequency.
It's fun, man. I love it. I honestly, at this point, I listen more to AI music that no one else will ever hear. Just like like I'll just generate like 100, listen to them all, find a couple favorites, and that'll be it. It's very much like I see a. What are the monks that do the freaking sand sculptures? I'm blanking on the big like mandalas or whatever the
Yeah,
hell they
yeah,
call them.
you're looking at the random number generator and finding meaning in it. It's great.
Right. And then you just wipe it clear. And it's like if no one ever saw that again, as if it never existed, that's fine because I got to experience it in that moment. I don't know. I love
It's
that
very
aspect of
zen.
it.
It's very
It is
zen,
very
it's
zen.
very Taoist, it's very look at the river for the message of what you'll do today. And you said, "Oh, well, you won't have to pay for music anymore thanks to AI." And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I feel like there's a quality to the songs that I look for that I haven't found with the AI music generator that we
I think you're
first
lying to
talked.
yourself.
What's that?
I think you're lying to yourself with that.
No, I'm saying I don't know which program to use, so maybe I have to sit in front of the sandbox like you and watch the patterns emerge.
Yeah, if you want to come back on paranoid programming, we can just
Do it.
hammer out music for an whole episode.
Let's do it.
All right, well, we'll wrap this up. Usually these are like 2 hours long. This was a great one. Your people showed up in the chat for sure. So
Oh, cool.
shout out to everyone in the chat that came over. Thanks, Mark, for inviting everyone. If you're not following already, follow me on Rumble and YouTube. And Mark, do a shout out on where people should follow you.
My family thinks I'm crazy right here, down here. myfamilythinksimcrazy.com. Look for this album artwork anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'm usually in the philosophy category. If your podcast app, whatever you use, just look for the philosophy genre. I'm usually in the top 20. And that's thanks to all the awesome people that listen to the show. So listen to My Family Thinks I'm Crazy wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll hear the intro music to my podcast, and you might like it based on the aesthetic of all the things we talk about today, or vice versa. If you already know about my podcast and you want to know more about my rap interests and all that, you just got a whole bunch of songs to listen to, a whole bunch of homework. And I've done podcasts like this before. I forget with who. I think it was with I don't want to give the wrong shout out because I have like 3 different people in my mind right now, but there have been other
You just
podcasts.
combine them into one word.
I don't want to do that because each of them deserve a shout out. So I won't give any of them a shout out in case I get it wrong. So, but I have done shows like this before where we pick 5 albums that we like. So I tried to pick some albums that I hadn't talked about on other podcasts. So there are other podcasts that exist where I talk about rap. So if you like that, go find it. That's the fun of podcasts. It's out there. Go find it.
And if you like some of the albums that Mark brought up, go and dig up Seismology on a Mission, produced by the Sound Scientist. Check out Save Hip Hop by Quite Nyce, also produced by the Sound Scientist. There's a couple others floating out there. We'll bring them up on future episodes. So thank you everyone for joining. And if you missed this and we were live on Rumble, you can just rewatch it when we're done. And if you're watching on YouTube, you just saw this a little bit late because YouTube's kind of a bitch. So anyways, if you want to see stuff live as it airs, go to Rumble, sign up to the Rumble, follow it even on Patreon free. I'll post all the links there so you'll be able to join in the comments and stuff, interact with us. Until next time, I appreciate you guys. Oh, and I guess I have to slip two other things in. Shout out to Raushus Mikey, who was the artist on Secret Mystery Schools issue 3 and 4 by Paranoid American, who created your thumbnail there. Shout out Mikey. And that Mystic Mark is in a freaking comic book right now that just launched. What am I doing? I'm doing a live stream that we've got a live campaign going on.
Yeah, I scolded Juan. I'm like, Juan, why didn't you guys invite me on the live stream? You get freaking Donut, and I love Donut, but don't get me wrong. But I'm the Skull and Bones researcher, and you guys.
Well, I think he literally left the podcast with you already to go to that one. I don't know.
Yeah, he was like, oh, well, that's the thing. I was driving home, so maybe he didn't think I got home in time. But yeah, no, we did.
So
it was a whole thing.
So Mark is in this episode. In fact, this is the first time Mark actually starts to flex some of his superpowers and his guns. He blasts freaking XG in the face with a laser in this. Using a little.
And I gotta say, I was a part of some of the creative discussions, but I didn't necessarily agree that I would become antagonistic against Sam and the guys.
You literally said, so I don't want to be part of the comic unless I can shoot XG in the face because that guy's a dick. You said that to us, so we wrote it in.
Well, you are lying, and that
I'm lying. That's not true.
But I did want to say in the cover right there, where is Chris's leg? Chris has
Don't worry, it's fixed. You know what? Here's a special little live preview for anyone Chris that really cares about this.
One leg in this album, this art cover, and also one body double is just floating there. He's just a torso.
That this is probably one of the cooler aspects of like getting a little bit more traction on this, because before, like, there wasn't enough people looking at it, let alone caring enough about it to point stuff out like that. But yeah, someone pointed this out, because now we're getting like legitimate comic book readers and fans, and they're like, hey, how come the legs are missing? So just to show you that we are fixing this, here's the original inks with the missing leg, right? Here, I'll click on the area with the missing legs. And then here was the second update that I got from Igor. And you can see now we've got more legs. Right. But I had like a whole freaking thing. Like I put little skeletons on them and I rigged them. And I was like, wait a minute, there's still one leg missing. So the fourth attempt, bam. Now we've got, look at all of these freaking legs down here now. And Igor was like, lesson learned. I won't position a bunch of dudes like squatting in this position again because of how hard it was to track all. But here's your proof. Here's the proof that the final printed cover will have the fixed legs. It's all anatomically correct now. We had to go back to the drawing board 4 times just to get the legs right. This is the kind of passion and attention to detail that I'm trying to bring and uphold. So
good. Yeah, I'm not nitpicking. I am a fan and I understand the hard work that goes into this, but I also noticed I am pretty short in comparison to real life.
Well, what happened is you were crouching. Juan was throwing a fit over how tiny he looked comparison to you.
Oh,
so
God.
He was like, kept telling the artist, like, knock Mark down a few inches, man. He can't look that tall.
Oh God, I am that big though. You can't be on a team with a giant if you want to be the big guy. I'm sorry,
well,
Juan.
And to be fair, I think that Johnny and XG are bigger than this. Like they're not tiny little like munchkins that live on Sam's back.
Well, that was the thing is I thought it would be better to do Johnny and XG because I think the original idea was it was going to be Sam's daughters, and I'm glad that that wasn't the idea because that gave way for Chaos Twins and their own kind of kid.
That is true. That is some like very behind the scenes talk right now. But the original
Right.
concept of this before, and this was all way before Sam even knew what the hell we were
Yes.
doing. There was like
Yep.
no buy off.
You guys
Like, there
asked
was
me what I
nothing.
thought. I gave you my straight honest truth. I said, do not do that. Put
Yeah.
XG and Johnny in it.
The original idea was that Sam was gonna have his kids on his back, and that Mark and Chris were gonna basically beat up his daughters. And I don't know for what reason that seemed like a good idea until Mark was like, "No, don't do that."
That's not. Yeah, no, not happening.
I guess it was easier for me because I wasn't the one that was gonna be like punching his daughter in the face, and you were.
To be fair, I think I came up with the Triple E thing where he has like the Bruce Lee vibe and he's triple league because there's 3 of them. I don't know. Maybe
I'll let you have that. I don't know if I agree. I'll just let you have it though. You can have that.
I
There's
feel
so
like
much
I
in here.
came up with that.
And this one right here too, if anyone is familiar with the Beetlejuice franchise, this scene of Alex Stein, this 100% is one of my favorite scenes from the original Beetlejuice movie when they ask him if he can be scary. But Alex Stein's special ability is that he can make anyone laugh, and in this particular frame, he is showing off that he has every single type of penis on the planet, every animal penis he has built into him. So he can just open up his coat and they all project out. And yeah, that's his special ability, or one of them. One
Another
of his many
reason
abilities.
why we need Johnny and XG in this comic book and not underage children.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I love it. I'm glad I'm a part of it. And I like the I don't know, you gave me some ability to influence it. Like I was able to get my jacket that I always wear in there. And,
Yeah, and I have to apologize ahead of time to you and anyone else that might ever be involved in this project that, like in a weird way, maybe I'm on a power trip as a comic creator, but when someone asks for a specific superpower, like an ability, I feel very much like Monkey Paw, or like you're gonna get what you asked for, but you might not realize the ramifications. Because, for example, Chris, his special ability is he wanted to be able to know if anyone was ever telling the truth or something like that. Or like he wanted his super ability was to force somebody to tell the truth. And I was just thinking, like, visually in a comic book, it's kind of boring if your superpower is like, I'll make you tell the truth, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess Wonder Woman had like the little rope of truth or something that she could like wrap around someone and force them to tell the truth. But even that was kind of lame. So Chris got his ability, but we inverted it to where if you ever tell a lie in his presence, shit just starts coming out of your mouth and you can't talk and you might like choke on it. And that became his power. So it's like he got the ability that he wanted, but he didn't realize that it was going to come at a cost.
Yeah. No, I gamed for that. I gave you guys like one that was kind of cool, but also a drawback because I get it. It's like the X-Men. These aren't, Stan Lee's first run where every superhero's flawless. This is like X-Men, Chris Claremont, like, the mutants are angsty teens who can't figure out their powers. And I get it. It's cool. I like it.
So yeah, if you're watching this and you want to be a part of it, you want to own a comic book with Mark in it, and Sam and XG and Johnny and Alex Stein and Juan and Chris and a whole bunch of other people, go to chosenjuan.com. This is also the cheapest comic that I've ever put out in history of being in print for over 10 years. And you can get it as low as $6. You can grab a copy for $6 or both copies for $10, which is $5 per copy, which is insane. Like there's zero profit margin on this, but the goal is really just to raise enough to print so many that we can afford to just give it to people almost at cost, because we really want to make this thing big. We want to get it in as many people's hands as we can.
I'll tell you what, I was looking at it just a few days ago and it said 1,533 and you're already at 2,066. So I don't know how accurate that is, but you're already up by 500, which is awesome. And yeah, I have the first edition and it's so cool. I also have the variant cover. So definitely pay a little bit more and get all the variant covers. That one with the Monarch Alex Stein is really cool. And art imitates life, life imitates art. I got a little nervous when I started looking at this because I'm like, oh geez, like this storyline's kind of weird. Like, I wonder if it's gonna affect reality somehow. But that's just me being paranoid. And rightly so, given that Paranoid American is publishing the comic book. So yeah, no, I think it's cool, man. I love the realism, and I also love the just the style. I don't know the names of the artists you chose, but you did a good job of creating like the overall aesthetic for it.
Well, this is actually the main artist. His name is Igor Chakal, and he is currently the lead artist of Ripaverse now, Eric July's comic books that have been literally selling like $1 million. Like he'll start a campaign, and within a few days, it'll raise $1 million. So Igor won't be on issues 3 and 4, I don't think, because he's basically got a full-time job working for like the highest up-and-coming comic book company. But that also means
the first one too.
He did. Igor did issues 1 and 2, and he is now one of the most coveted independent comic artists on the freaking planet. So that's a cool little chip on everyone's shoulder that, like this great freaking comic artist that is well known worldwide now.
All right.
Also has drawn you guys in your own, superhero characteristics. So
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, you're giving me a lot of energy right now because I'm like, oh, geez, now I can. Because I don't know, I'm about to nerd out, but I was into buying comic books for a few months for a while back, like last year. I kind of slowed down on buying them because I moved, and there's not a lot of good comic shops near me anymore. But there's like a whole I don't know, there's like a whole ego about comic books, and like it was hard to make any friends with any of those guys. So I tried to go in there and like show them the comic book that I was in, and they were just kind of like, yeah, that's cool. But now I'm gonna go back in there and be like, do you see that name right there, Igor?
Do you see me blasting this dude in the face with a laser? Come on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in there and be like, how many of you guys have yourself in an action-packed comic book drawn by one of the most coveted artists, Igor Chakal? Pencils and ink, baby. Not just
shout out to Igor. He was one of the best artists that I've ever worked with. And what's crazy too is that it wasn't like I necessarily sought him out just for his style, which I definitely did. But the other big aspect was that he did a lot of artwork memes for like libertarian accounts, and I had run into so many artists. Like literally, one of the artists that I like has been working with for 10 years. Once he saw the Alex Stein cover, he looked up like what Alex Stein did, and he was like, man, like I know we've been working for over a decade now. He's like, I'm not comfortable like having my name as the one that produced this cover. And
same thing with the rap stuff we were talking about,
dude, it got crazy because there's so many comic artists that they might not even be political, but if you're political, it's like I don't even want to touch it. I don't want to be anywhere close to associated with this in case they come after me, because there is like a comics gate sort of thing where it's the same thing in all the other industries. They'll contact all your employers and be like, did you know that your employee like retweeted a tweet that this person posted, and that person liked the tweet from Owen Benjamin, so therefore your employee is Hitler. So that's kind of the way that it happened in the comics world. And like Superman's gay now, right? Iceman's gay. I've got a song called Superheroes Are Gay on SoundCloud.
Wolverine, the coolest guy, Wolverine. And they're writing in a side story where this alternate Wolverine is bi. And I'm like, why? Who needs that? And they're like retroactively saying like, oh yeah, Wolverine's always been like that. And I'm like, well, I don't like Wolverine now. No offense. Like, if you told me that from the beginning, I wouldn't care. But like, I don't know.
If you like this conversation, check out the Superheroes Are Gay song by Sound Scientist with this LGBTQW Wolverine. I was prophetic, bro. This was 3 months ago. I didn't even know we were going to talk about this.
Well, they had like this just fits right in with everything we talked about. But yeah, they had like a whole like, I don't know, Marvel wiki thing that I read for some reason, and it was like a whole breakdown on how there's two different Logans, and one of them's name is James, and he's a whatever. I'm just like, that's not the real Wolverine that like you read about in the original Wolverine. He's not. That's not him at all. He's banging.
Here, let me. It's only
the
the
Japanese.
song's only
kid.
20 seconds long, so I'm just gonna play the song.
He's into
Man gay, Nightcrawler gay, North Star gay, Batwoman gay, Apollo gay, Iceman gay, Green Lantern gay, Bunker gay, Piper gay, Shatterstar gay, Aqualad gay, Moondragon gay, The Ray gay, Blow gay, Thunder gay, Mystique gay, Destiny gay.
No, that wasn't all of them, but those are the actual canon superheroes that are now gay.
No, you're right. And I noticed it with X-Men because I got into reading some of the new X-Men stuff, and it's just all like it feels like you're reading a soap opera sometimes. And I get it, you know, there's a market for it, whatever, but it feels like the real comic book heads are not into that stuff. So I go for the old school stuff. I have like a lot of the original Wolverine comics. So, and he's not doing anything related to relationships at all ever. He's always fighting, shooting, or not killing people with guns, you know, like he never really kills anybody unless they're killing. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a just violent guy, and he's also an MK Ultra victim, you know? Like that's the coolest thing about Wolverine is he's like a CIA project kind of thing who's like battling with the fact that he was turned into a weapon by the CIA. So it's just, yeah, I don't know. And that goes against secret agent stuff because they don't let bisexual people into, they don't let homosexuals be secret agents. Did you know that?
I didn't. Well, I think that if you're dumb enough to admit to it, because that automatically, because I had a top secret SCI clearance and I had to go through a lot of like the higher level top secret training that wasn't, I mean, it was common sense in retrospect, but some of those things are like, you're not allowed to ever gamble or let anyone know that you gamble. You can't ever be in debt. You can't have like unpaid credit card bills, and you can't have what they consider moral vices. And some of those moral vices tend to be like degenerate sexual. And it's well, that's exactly it. It's not that, well, part of it, but it's not that they're like, ew, gross, you're kissing dudes. That's not it. It's that
because they're actively compromising other agents from enemy groups with those same tactics. So they have people in their retinue who do that, but they don't make it above a certain level of clearance because that's not what their job is. That's not why
I found that out the hard way, by the way, because I had a top secret SCI clearance and I had like a credit card that I opened on base. Like it was a base credit card and I used it to buy like a PlayStation and a bed. And I didn't pay it for like 3 months. Like, and I think I missed a couple of the payments because I was like fresh out of freaking off home. And I got called in and reprimanded, and I got like a letter of reprimand, like an actual LOR, which is pretty official. It's like getting sent to the principal's office in the military and having it on your permanent record. And it was because they explained to me that me being in debt meant that I was now susceptible to like some spy could come in and be like, hey, we see that you can't afford to pay your credit card. How would $30,000 sound? And now all of a sudden you're a security risk because someone outside the government can now offer you something that it's crazy how it works, but it makes sense in retrospect.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. Yeah. But I don't know. I guess comic books, rap, Czarface, it's all related. All of this stuff is kind of into a similar milieu. And I hope that the rappers that we listen to podcasts like this because it feels like it would vibe or gel with them. But maybe they're like you and they don't have time to listen to podcasts. They're too old.
That wasn't just because I'm too old. All right, man. We'll do this again, and we'll do some movies again. We got all kinds of stuff coming up. I mean, you're in the freaking comic book now, so like you're in my universe,
bro. I love it. You have a comic book on my shelf. You're taking up space on my bookshelf up there with my tinfoil hat pamphlet, right there above my, right there.
Geronimo's Grave. That one still has not been released. I might release the remaining ones at some point as like a special bundle. But right now, when someone buys something and like they're international or they had to pay extra for shipping and I feel bad, I'll throw one of those in there and a bunch of other sticker sheets and stuff.
I love it.
So,
yeah, man.
Small handful of people own those, but they're pretty limited still.
I've given them out to comic book stores, just local ones that are close to New Haven, because I wanted them to have, or one in New Haven, actually. So right down the street from Skull and Bones.
I need to get more in there, man. I need to still start pumping those out. So I appreciate you spreading the word. And anyone else that wants to spread the word, again, go to chosenone.com, grab a copy, and there's lots more coming after that. These are the ones that we had to get out of the system to like relieve the blockage.
He's a chosen one.
It's catchy, isn't it? Okay.
Go to chosenone.com. Yeah, of course. It's AI. It gets in your intelligence.
All right, I'll see y'all. Thanks again for coming.
Paranoid. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane. Paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.